Chapter 5677. Zhongli Shaoran looked at Zhongli Mu's anxious look and turned his gaze to the flower. Old Lady Hua, didn't you close the mountain? Why are you taking in disciples? The flower raised her eyebrows. This kind of standard naturally varies from person to person. Have you seen such a beautiful girl before? Zhongli Shaoran looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and fell into silence. Master, I realize that there are many benefits to being beautiful. Xiaohei's face was full of joy. Her master was already as beautiful as a fairy, but she didn't expect to have such an unexpected reward today. Bailey Hongzhuang also didn't expect this, but she could feel that Granny Hua was looking at her with a kind gaze. Thinking about it, Granny Hua must have been a beauty when she was young. Zhongli Mu saw that his own grandfather was defeated and felt even more helpless. It seemed that there was no hope of snatching Hongzhuang and the rest back. Thinking about today's meal and what he usually ate, his gaze dimmed. This was really despairing. Little girl, tell Granny, what is your name? Senior, Junior is Bailey Hongzhuang. No need to be so polite. Just call me Granny Hua from now on. Yes, Granny Hua. Come, Granny will bring you to my house to familiarize yourself. With that, the flower brought Bailey Hongzhuang outside. Di Beichen and the rest also walked out. Yu Hong and Huashukong also brought Wen Ziren and Xiaohei out. In a moment, the unusually lively house suddenly quietened down. Zhongli Mu's face was dejected. We won't be able to eat such delicious food in the future. Zhongli Shaoran patted Zhongli Mu's head and said, Silly child, we can go and freeload. Freeload? Zhongli Mu was stunned and looked at Zhongli Shaoran suspiciously. Grandfather, didn't you say not to be too familiar with people? When Granny Hua and the rest came, he clearly heard his grandfather say that. Cough, cough. Zhongli Shaoran coughed lightly and earnestly said, Mu'er, we are not too familiar with people. We are already very familiar with each other. Grandpa, is that really the case? Zhongli Mu was a little doubtful. He didn't know why, but he felt that something was wrong. Zhongli Shao nodded. Of course, think about it. Aren't you very familiar with Granny Hua and the others? Zhongli Mu thought for a moment. That does seem to be the case. That's right. Zhongli Shaoran heaved a sigh of relief. It was getting harder and harder to deceive children as they grew up after going to Granny Hua's residence. Bailey Hongzhuang discovered that this place was actually very close to Zhongli Mu's residence. It was only because of the trees that they did not notice before. Now that they knew the location, they realized that it was very close. The residences in the abandoned immortal forest were all simple wooden houses. Even though they looked very crude, they had a different kind of elegance. In the following days, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others began to divide the work. The men were responsible for hunting, while the women were responsible for cooking. If it was on a normal day, this kind of life obviously did not belong to them. However, it was this simple life that made them very happy. Ling do you want to learn too? Shang Guanying looked at Ling who was still standing at the side, and asked with a smile. Ling frowned and shook her head. I'm not good at such delicate work. Chapter 5678. Ling if you're interested, you can learn from them. These seniors are all very powerful. Being able to get their pointers is something that many cultivators yearn for. You've been stuck in the nebula realm for a while now. Breaking through is so difficult. Maybe they'll be your light. Bailey Hongzhuang was deep in thought. Although she didn't know what realm it was after breaking through the nebula realm, Ling cultivation talent was so outstanding. Logically speaking, she should have broken through long ago. However, there hadn't been any movement recently. It was a bit strange. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Ling also fell silent. Shang Guanying's face was full of joy. That's right. Now is a good time to curry favor with the seniors. You can learn to cook, and once you do, you can even help Yin Che. Help Yin Che? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. Shang Guanying nodded. Isn't that right? Naturally. Isn't it because he's relying on me to get guidance? Bailey Hongzhuang and Ling both understood. However, Ying, does this count as you being sold by Ziren and helping him count the money? I'm not helping that guy. Ling turned her gaze. She was unhappy at the mention of Bai Li Yin Che. If you're not helping him, just treat it as helping yourself. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Whether it was Ling, or Yin Che, they were both arrogant. She couldn't do anything about it. In the beginning, Granny Hua and the others didn't give much guidance. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were very happy cooking. In their opinion, this should be the seniors' test for them. Hua, and the others were like otherworldly experts in their eyes. Naturally, they couldn't teach them everything easily. However, as long as they got familiar with them, there was always hope. Of course, during this process, Zhongli Xiao Ran didn't hesitate to bring Zhongli Mu to freeload. Old man Zhongli, didn't you say that people shouldn't be so friendly? You're actually here to freeload today? Granny Hua crossed her arms in front of her chest and looked at Zhongli Xiao Ran with burning eyes. It was as if she was waiting to watch a good show. Cough, cough. Zhongli Xiaoran coughed. Zhongli Mu immediately understood and said with a smile, Granny, we're not making friends. We're already very close. Hearing this, Hua couldn't help but laugh. She patted Zhongli Mu's head and said, you're right. Saying that, the flower quietly looked at Zhongli Xiao Ran. Old man, you're even using Mu now. Mu is my grandson. Zhongli Xiaoran had a calm expression as he didn't feel that there was any problem. It was another fine day. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest had already stayed in the abandoned immortal forest for a few days. In these few days, Bailey Hongzhuang and Granny Hua had become much more familiar with each other. She loved and respected her mother-in-law from the bottom of her heart. Granny Hua was very cute. She didn't care about trifles, and her words revealed an indescribable carefreeness. Granny Hua, Ling, has been stuck at Star Cloud Level 9 for a while now. Why hasn't she broken through yet? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Ling also looked at Hua. She was also very confused about this point. Hua looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and then looked at Ling, who was looking forward to it. She lazily laid on the rocking chair and closed her eyes. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Ling looked at each other and were about to leave helplessly. However, they suddenly heard Granny Hua's voice. Chapter 5679. After the Nebula Level 9 is the Radiant Moon Realm. The Radiant Moon Realm is divided into 3 realms: the Radiant Moon Realm, the Radiant Moon Realm, and the Heavenly Moon Realm. Each realm is also divided into 9 levels. It's extremely difficult to break through from a nebula realm to the Radiant Moon Realm. This is a natural process, so remember not to rush things. Quantitative changes will lead to qualitative changes. The more stable your foundation is before breaking through to the Radiant Moon Realm, the stronger your abilities will be after the breakthrough. As far as I know, some powerhouses have deliberately suppressed the speed of breaking through to the Radiant Moon Realm. When they break through naturally, they're undoubtedly the strongest among their peers. Bailey Hongzhuang listened attentively to Granny Hua's words. Previously, she did not know much about the realms above the Nebula Realm. Although it was just a simple introduction, it gave her a clear outline in her mind. As for suppressing the speed of breaking through, she had heard of such situations before. However, after listening to Granny Hua's explanation, she was even more clear about the effects of success. No wonder there's such a huge difference in abilities between cultivators of the same level. The foundation is the most important. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed. She had always known that for cultivators, the foundation was the foundation. Only with a stable foundation could one have more achievements. However, Granny Hua told her that before breaking through to the Radiant Moon Realm, she must try her best to suppress her cultivation. Presumably, the longer she suppressed her cultivation, the more her abilities would increase after breaking through. That's right. Granny Hua nodded. The higher the level of cultivation, the more important the foundation will be. Girl, you have to pay attention to this too. Thank you for your advice, Granny. Bailey Hongzhuang cupped her hands, looking as if she had learned something. As she spoke, Granny Hua's gaze turned to Ling. However, your situation is different from what I've described. Ling was slightly stunned. Granny Hua continued. The reason why you can't break through to the Radiant Moon Realm is because you were once sealed by an extremely powerful force. If you can't break this seal a little, it'll be very difficult for you to break through." As soon as she said that, Bailey Hongzhuang and Ling were shocked. They thought of Bai Yunjiao. Because of some things that had happened back then, he had indeed been sealed. Not only had his strength been sealed, but his memories had also been sealed. In Bai Yunjiao's ruins, Ling Er's seal had been unlocked a little, and she had recovered part of her memories. However, they also understood that she had not fully recovered. They did not think that the increase in her strength was related to the seal. However, the two of them did not expect Granny Hua's eyesight to be so high. They didn't say anything, but Granny Hua could tell that Linger had been sealed before. Her eyesight was really amazing. As a member of the Dragon Clan, you became the contracted beast of a cultivator weaker than you. I believe many stories must have happened to you. As for the specifics, I won't ask. The flower's expression was calm, as if what it said was nothing out of the ordinary. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed in her heart again. From the beginning to the end, Granny Hua and the other seniors had never mentioned anything about Ling Er's identity. She only thought that Ling had hidden herself very well after transforming into her human form, and it would not be easy to see through her true form. Now, it seemed that the seniors had already seen through Ling Er's hidden identity, but they were too lazy to expose it. Chapter 5680. If you want to break through, it's not impossible. The most important thing is still your own cultivation. Just as I said before, a quantitative change will lead to a qualitative change. When your cultivation is enough to break through to the radiant moon realm, the seal will weaken along with your strength. Perhaps, other than breaking through, you'll gain something else. Granny Hua closed her eyes again as she spoke. "I'm going to take an afternoon nap." Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Ling bowed and left the room. A quantitative change will lead to a qualitative change. Ling mumbled to herself, her eyes filled with thoughts. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Ling, who was deep in thought, and could not help but say, "I wonder what happened back then that even your memories had to be sealed. Even Master did not release your seal completely the last time." They were all very confused about this and could not understand why Bai Yunjiao would do this. I believe that the previous master must have her reasons for doing this. It's just that we can't know about it for now. Ling Er's expression gradually became determined. Since a quantitative change will lead to a qualitative change, as long as I continue to cultivate and increase my origin power, I'll naturally be able to break through the seal. I'll then know what happened back then. Until now, the feeling of having incomplete memories still troubled her greatly. She always felt as if she had lost some very important memories. Most importantly, they were now in the abandoned immortal forest. Although she did not have any memories, she was sure that she had been to this place before. If she could remember everything, she would not be so unfamiliar with the immortal realm. She would also be able to help Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. It would not be like now, where even breaking through to the radiant moon realm was so difficult. Bailey Hongzhuang also understood Ling Er's helplessness and frustration. Her beautiful face lit up with a bright and warm smile, instantly shining into Ling Er's heart, dispelling the darkness and warming it up. "Linger, we'll find out about everything sooner or later. Don't be anxious. After all, your cultivation is the highest now. Just treat it as waiting for us." Hearing this, Linger nodded. That's the only way now. After Bailey Hongzhuang left the house, she found Di Beichun and the others. They were all cultivating together with Zhongli Mu. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang appear, everyone's face was filled with joy. "Hongzhuang, Granny Hua is already taking an afternoon nap?" Di Beichun asked aloud. It had been like this for the past few days, and they already knew that Grandma Hua had the habit of taking a lunch break. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. "Yes, but Grandma Hua told me something before she went to sleep." She immediately repeated what Granny Hua had said earlier, so when we are at Nebula Stage 9, there's no need to rush to break through. Suppressing it a bit more should be beneficial to us in the future. That's right. Back then, before I broke through to the Radiant Moon Realm, I also stopped for a long time. This was what Grandfather told me, so I had been suppressing it. However, one day when I was sleeping, I quietly broke through on my own. Zhongli Mu shrugged. After breaking through, I felt that my cultivation was much stronger than before. It didn't feel like it was just a breakthrough. Chapter 5681. After cultivating with Zhongli Mu, everyone understood how powerful Zhongli Mu was. Senior Zhongli would often guide Zhongli Mu in his cultivation, and he was not stingy in the process. He would occasionally give them a few pointers, which were of great help to them. After staying in the abandoned immortal forest for a few days, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest returned to the upper realm. I wonder if Yunju has returned. Xiren's expression was filled with longing. The abandoned immortal forest is such a good opportunity for him to improve. It would be a pity if he missed it. That's right. With Yunju's comprehension, he will definitely improve greatly. Deep Baichen nodded. Hongzhuang and I have already sent people to the mercenary guild to inform him. Logically speaking, he should have heard the news and should be back soon. It would be great if he's back. I think we can stay in the abandoned immortal forest for a while. Speaking of the abandoned immortal forest, Xiren was very happy. Although they often had to hunt and cook there and did not have as much time to cultivate as usual, their cultivation progress was much faster than before. This was all thanks to Senior's guidance. In addition, the abandoned immortal forest was rich in vitality, which made it very suitable for cultivation. Therefore, everyone's progress was very good. Later, we will tell Father and Mother that we will be in closed-door cultivation for a while. This way, no one will be suspicious. Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at Di Baichen. If they were not going to come out for a long time, it would be better to inform them in advance. No problem, Di Baichen replied with a smile. As a cultivator, it was normal for them to go into closed-door cultivation. Even his father often went into closed-door cultivation. Therefore, it would not arouse any suspicion. However, he was also thinking about whether he should tell his father about the abandoned immortal forest. I had to find a chance to ask Father if he knows about the existence of the crossing immortal domain. Hearing Di Baichen's words, everyone nodded. With the Di family status in the upper realm, it was not impossible for them to come into contact with the crossing immortal domain. Hongzhuang, you've come out of seclusion? Mu Lingbing happened to be near where Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were staying, and her face lit up with joy. Mother, Bailey Hongzhuang was overjoyed and quickly walked over to Mu Lingbing. What are you doing here? I heard that Mo Yunjue had returned today. I thought that you would want to meet up with him, so I came over to take a look. But when I saw that your doors were tightly shut, I didn't want to disturb you. Just as I was about to leave, I saw you open the door. Yunju is back. Everyone's faces lit up. It seemed like their judgment was right. That's right, he just came back. Mu Lingbing nodded with a smile. You can go and see him now. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other. Bailey Hongzhuang then said, Mother, let's go see him first. We'll go see you later. No problem. Mu Lingbing smiled. After Mu Lingbing returned to her room, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others also walked towards Mo Yunjue's room. Just as they expected, they saw a familiar figure at the door. Yunju, you're finally back. Xiren strode forward to Mo Yunjue's side. Mo Yunjue turned around. When he saw the familiar figures, his face lit up with a warm smile. Chapter 5682. Bailey Hongzhuang sized up Mo Yunjue in front of her. Although they had only been apart for a few months, when she saw him for the first time, she had a completely different feeling. The murderous aura that hit her in the face showed that Mo Yunjue had definitely experienced a baptism of blood during this period of time. Presumably, the mercenary mission he had accepted was not simple. Otherwise, there would not be such a strong murderous aura. Yunjue, it seems that you have improved a lot during this period of time. Even if she did not know Mo Yunjue's true cultivation at this moment, just by feeling his aura, she knew that it was not just a little bit stronger than before. Mo Yunjue's usually cold face raised a faint smile that was almost invisible. It's just a few missions in the forest, that's all. I have improved a little. No one ignored Mo Yunjue's words. His cultivation talent was first class, and coupled with the fact that he had never slacked off in his cultivation, even if it was just a short few months, they could imagine that he must have been extremely busy during this period of time, and did not slack off at all. Right, this time at the Mercenary Guild. Did you know Huang Futing? Di Beichun suddenly asked. Mo Yunjua nodded. When I was at the Mercenary Guild, Huang Futing was also a rather famous mercenary, but we did not have much contact before. It was only when you sent the cultivators to find me that I found out that their relationship with you was not shallow, and that was how I got to know them. Their performance at the Mercenary Guild was not bad. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with a trace of expectation. In fact, after getting to know Huang Futing, she felt that this person's ability was extraordinary, but this time he had led so many darkness attribute cultivators to gain experience, so they could not help but be worried. I know that they are all darkness attribute cultivators, but they hid very well, and no one discovered them. Mo Yinjue's tone became gentler. Moreover, they worked very hard during the missions. I could feel that they worked so hard to improve their strength as quickly as possible. You can rest assured that with their strength, there won't be any problems. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun looked at each other and felt relieved. That's good. Then we can rest assured. As she spoke, Bailey Hongzhuang continued. Yunjua, when we returned this time, we handed your letter to the pavilion master of the Shirtian Pavilion. Mo Yunjua paused for a moment, but did not say anything. Bailey Hongzhuang hesitated for a moment. He asked us to take good care of you. When these words were spoken, Mo Yunjua's expression clearly stiffened. He opened his mouth, but did not say anything, as if he did not know what to say. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others did not say anything more. In fact, even if Mo Yunjua had never mentioned it, they could feel that there was something going on between him and the pavilion master of Shirtian Tower. Otherwise, he would not have been unwilling to go back this time. However, since Mo Yunjua was unwilling to say, they would not ask. Hongzhuang, this time, you have brought your relatives to the upper realm, so you can be completely relieved. Mo Yunjua changed the topic, and his expression was no longer stiff and complicated. Yes, I see that they are living quite freely here, so I am relieved. Chapter 5683. I think father-in-law and mother-in-law would be better off staying here to cultivate. Di Beichun smiled, his handsome face becoming even gentler. Although the Bailey family is not bad, the concentration of elemental energy there is not as good as here. What father-in-law and mother-in-law need most now is to raise their levels of cultivation. It would be better for them to stay here for the time being. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded lightly. When she saw Mu Lingbing just now, she could acutely sense that the other's aura had increased. It looked like the results of her cultivation in the training room were not bad. Yunjue, now that you're back, we can cultivate together. Bailey Hongzhuang was in high spirits. This time, we've discovered an excellent place to cultivate. I'm sure you'll be able to raise your level faster than the Mercenary Guild. Mo Yunjue raised his eyebrows, a look of contemplation flashing across his eyes, but he quickly understood. The forest world? That's right, but I guarantee that you won't be able to imagine the changes in the forest world. When Xiren kept him in suspense. When we first discovered it, we were all shocked and almost lost our lives. But this time, you've really picked up a bargain. When he said this, Mo Yunjue frowned, his handsome face revealing a hint of nervousness. Could it be that you've encountered a powerful demon beast inside? You won't be able to guess what I've said. You'll know when you go in. When Xiren deliberately mystified him, he took a step forward, leaving Mo Yunjue with his back facing him. If you can guess it, I'll give you my precious bottle of wine. If you can't guess it, how about you tell a joke? When Xiren turned his head, looking at Mo Yunjue with interest. He and Mo Yunjue had known each other for so long, and this guy had always been as cold as ice. Luckily, they were very familiar with each other, so he did not find it strange. But when he thought of asking Mo Yunjue to tell a joke, he felt that this idea was too interesting. However, what answered him was Mo Yunjue's cold gaze. Mo Yunjue didn't say anything. He just looked at Xiren quietly. As he watched, Xiren could not help but shrug his shoulders and admit defeat. Forget it. I know you're not as interesting as me. Why are you still talking when you know? His voice was as cold as ever. Because Mo Yunjue had just returned, no one disturbed him. They let him have a good rest first, and tomorrow they would go to the forest world to train together. After that, Bailey Hongzhuang went to the cultivation room. Sure enough, everyone was gathered here. From the looks of it, he probably hadn't walked out of the cultivation room for a while. After sensing for a while, they were keenly aware of everyone's progress. Mother, you've already broken through to the starlight mirror? Bailey Hongzhuang was pleasantly surprised. Previously, he had only sensed that Mu Lingbing's strength had increased. Now that he had carefully sensed it, he realized that she had broken through to the starlight mirror. After all, they had only been in the D family for a short period of time. Mu Lingbing smiled and nodded. The elemental energy here is very dense. With the addition of some rare treasures, the speed of improvement is naturally very fast. Bailey Hongzhuang looked carefully. As expected, other than Mu Lingbing, everyone's strength had increased by quite a bit. This cultivation room is really suitable for all of you. Bailey Hongzhuang was delighted. Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Chapter 5684. Noticing the satisfaction on everyone's faces, Bailey Hongzhuang also felt relieved. It seemed that while they were cultivating in seclusion, her mother and grandmother had come by many times and had prepared everything very well. Father, the Bailey family's status in the upper realm is not comparable to the D family. Whether it is cultivation resources or the environment, it is slightly inferior. If you feel comfortable here, why don't you stay here for a while? Bailey Hongzhuang's concerned gaze swept over everyone. Although she felt this was the most suitable place, she still had to ask for everyone's opinion. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other in dismay, then smiled and nodded. Hongzhuang, you don't have to worry about us. We are very comfortable here. Lan Yunxiao's expression was gentle, his bright black eyes full of affection. He really couldn't help but like such a well-behaved daughter. As a father, he couldn't do anything for his daughter and instead made her worry about him. He also felt guilty. That's right, Hongzhuang, don't worry. Mu Jins also smiled and said, we usually cultivate and don't have any requirements for the environment, not to mention that everything here has been arranged so well. Noticing everyone's sincere expressions and that there wasn't the slightest bit of reluctance, Bailey Hongzhuang was completely relieved. Di Beichen and I will also be in seclusion for a while. We hope to have a breakthrough in our strength. Perhaps you won't see us for a while. However, if you need anything, you only need to put a note on our door. We will definitely come over as soon as we see it, Bailey Hongzhuang said. No problem. You can all cultivate at ease. On this day, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen weren't in a hurry to return to the abandoned immortal forest. Instead, they accompanied their families for dinner and strolled around Emperor Cloud City for a while before returning. Di Beichen originally wanted to find his father to ask about the crossing immortal domain, but he didn't expect that Di Yujue was also in seclusion, so he could only return empty-handed. Father has also been trying to break through to a higher realm recently. I hope he can succeed. Di Beichen's eyes were filled with anticipation. Di Yujue was a very outstanding genius in the upper realm. If it were not for the fact that Di Beichen had put more effort into finding him, he would be even more powerful now. Even so, he was no weaker than the Jun family and the Xiao family. On the contrary, he was even more stunning. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. With father's talent, breaking through is only a matter of time. He will definitely succeed. There was still no news from the Xiao family and the Jun family. The Di family had specially sent cultivators to keep an eye on them. As long as there was any news, they would be sent back as soon as possible. The next day, Mo Yunjue followed everyone to the forest world. He was originally very puzzled about the forest world. He did not know what kind of amazing discovery everyone had made, so much so that Xiren had been so mysterious. However, when he saw Zhongli Mu, his expression changed abruptly. His eyes were filled with astonishment. It wasn't just him. Zhongli Mu was also surprised when he saw Mo Yunjue. Beichun, you brought a new friend? Di Beichen nodded slightly. Yunjue is our good brother. We used to cultivate together, but he was busy a while ago, so he didn't come. Now, I'll introduce him to you. Hello, I'm Zhongli Mu. Chapter 5685. I'm Mo Yunjue. Mo Yunjue replied, but he could not help but size up Zhongli Mu. Even though it was just a glance, he could feel that this cultivator, who was much younger than them, was much stronger than him. Even though there were many outstanding cultivators in the upper realm, he had never felt such a huge gap between them. Furthermore, Zhongli Mu was so young. It was hard to imagine how talented he was. There's actually someone in the forest world. What's going on? Mo Yunjue secretly transmitted his voice. This was too shocking for him. He could not figure it out for a moment. Noticing the shock on Mo Yunjue's face, Xiren's smile had a hint of pride. He raised his eyebrows and said smugly, "It's rare to see such an expression on your face. I'll reluctantly tell you." Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at Xiren's smug look. They could not help but laugh. This guy was always thinking about things that others could not think of. After Xiren told them the whole story, Mo Yunjue was still in disbelief. If he had not received confirmation from Bailey Hongzhuang's people, he would have thought that Xiren had made up a story to deceive him. The immortal region actually exists in this world. Could it be that everyone in the immortal region is an immortal? Immortal. This word had been passed down for a long time. Ever since they heard various stories when they were young, they had always yearned for immortals. They did not expect to come to the immortal region. I've asked this question before. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled, then repeated Zhongli Mu's explanation. After hearing all this, Mo Yunjue's eyes were filled with even more shock. This senior is really amazing. In just a few words, he explained everything so simply and casually. Thinking about it carefully, it's true. I was too narrow-minded before. Yunjue, you're too modest. While everyone was talking, Zhongli Mu's figure appeared again. He smiled at everyone and said, "Grandpa, you said that he would teach you sword techniques today. Come with me." Once these words were spoken, everyone's faces lit up with interest. During this period of time, they had been helping the various seniors tidy up. However, it was very rare for him to receive guidance. Who would have thought that senior you would actually say that he would teach them sword techniques today? How could they not be happy? In the upper realm, although they had learned a lot of martial skills, they did not know much about sword techniques. Since senior you had decided to teach them, his actions should not be simple. Yinju, you're so lucky. You can learn the swordsmanship as soon as you come today. Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but say with excitement in her eyes. Everyone followed behind Zhongli Mu and quickly rushed forward. Zhongli Mu's speed was as fast as lightning. He shuttled through the forest and disappeared in the blink of an eye. In order to keep up with Zhongli Mu's speed, everyone had to use all their skills. However, the former's movement technique was clearly much better than theirs. Even if they used all their strength, the distance between them was constantly widening. After rushing for hundreds of miles, Zhongli Mu's figure finally stopped. When he turned around, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had yet to arrive. Everyone continued forward. They could only hear the sound of flowing water in front of them, but they did not dare to slack off at all. Chapter 5686. After everyone stopped, their faces were flushed red, and they stood on the spot, gasping for breath. The moist water vapor blew against their faces, bringing a sense of coolness to everyone. Everyone turned around and realized that they had unknowingly arrived at a river. I never thought that there would be such a majestic river in the middle of the abandoned immortal forest. Shangguan Yingying exclaimed. In her line of sight, the river that was a few hundred feet wide seemed to have divided the entire abandoned immortal forest into two. The river flowed rapidly. Even though they were standing on the riverbank, they could feel the speed of the current. It was as if everything would be washed away in the blink of an eye. In front of the river was a majestic waterfall. The waterfall was a few hundred feet tall, as if it was a silver screen. The rumbling sound of the waterfall could be heard continuously. The river flowed down majestically, splashing water droplets that were a few hundred feet high, causing the surrounding air to be moist. This waterfall is so majestic. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the huge waterfall in front of her. She looked extremely small in front of the waterfall. Zhongli Mu, did you bring us here because senior you want to teach us swordsmanship here? Di Beichun turned to look at Zhongli Mu. He felt that there must be a reason for bringing them here. Could it be that the swordsmanship had something to do with the waterfall? Zhong Limu nodded. That's right. Grandpa, you asked me to bring you here. You're all here. Yu Hong's figure appeared in everyone's line of sight. He looked at Di Bei Chun and the others, and finally his eyes stopped on Mo Yunjue. Why is there another young man today? Yu Hong frowned. Seeing this, Di Bei Chun stepped forward and clasped his hands together. Senior Yu, this is Mo Yunjue. He is also our best friend. He was out training earlier, so he came late. I hope you don't mind, but I'm only going to teach this swordsmanship to the few of you. I am not going to teach it to everyone. Yu Hong lifted his eyes and placed his hands behind his back. He looked arrogant and looked away, as if he was not willing to teach them. Everyone's hearts tightened when they saw this scene. In fact, they had been worried about these problems before, but they thought that the seniors were easy to talk to and might not care about this. But now, it seemed that the situation was not as simple as they thought. Mo Yunjue's expression changed as well. He could feel that this senior before him was extremely powerful. If he could receive his guidance, he would definitely benefit greatly. However, it was clear that his appearance had displeased this senior, and he was unwilling to implicate everyone because of him. In the next moment, Mo Yunjue also took a step forward and said, Senior, this junior's appearance has disturbed you. I hope that a great person like you will not hold a grudge against this lowly person. I will leave now. Everyone couldn't help but feel anxious as they turned to look at Yu Hong. They really didn't want Mo Yunjue to miss out on such an opportunity. Bailey Hongzhuang carefully sized up Yu Hong. According to her understanding, this senior Yu is a sentimental person who is usually quite interesting. This matter should have taken a turn for the better. After pondering for a while, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly came up with a plan. Senior Yu, it's indeed our fault for bringing Yunju here so abruptly. But this time, Yunjue also brought a greeting gift. He knows that you like to eat exotic delicacies, so he specially prepared many special dishes. I hope you will like them. Chapter 56-87. After hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the arrogant Yu Hong's expression suddenly changed. His round eyes widened as he leaned his head forward and asked curiously, Are you telling the truth? Seeing Yu Hong's reaction, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart calmed down. It seemed that her judgment was right. If she wanted to tempt these seniors, she had to use her trump card. Of course. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Di Bei Chun and the others also smiled because they knew that the seniors were all foodies, so this time when they went back, they brought a lot of food. Although there were many monsters in the abandoned immortal forest, there were only a few monster groups that were relatively close to each other. There was no doubt that there were fewer of the corresponding species. Emperor Cloud City was different. There were all kinds of food. Last night, they made a special trip to Emperor Cloud City and bought some of the more famous food there in order to please the seniors. Now, what they needed most was the seniors to guide them in their cultivation. As long as they could please the seniors, it would be easier to achieve their goal. Originally, they wanted to use this trump card at noon, but they didn't expect to use it now. As she spoke, Bailey Hongzhuang took out a plate of desserts from her chinquan bag and handed it to Yu Hong. Senior Yu, today you have to guide us in swordsmanship. It's really hard for you. Try this dessert first. If you like it, we will definitely prepare more in the future. Yu Hong took the snacks from Bailey Hongzhuang and nodded with satisfaction. I was wondering why Granny Hua liked you so much. You're really likable. Thank you for your praise. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. She had a good impression of these seniors. Everyone understood that with the strength of these few seniors, they must be stunning figures without compare. However, these seniors deliberately gave them a chance to coax them. Since this kid is already here, let's stay together. Yu Hong took a bite of the snack and said casually, Anyway, even if I don't teach you today, you guys will tell him anyway. It's better to stay and cultivate together. That way, he won't say that this old man is stingy. Hearing this, everyone smiled happily. Thank you, Senior Yu. What I want you to do today is very simple. Cut open the waterfall. Yu Hong pointed at the majestic waterfall in front of him and said calmly. As soon as these words came out, everyone was stunned. When Xiren almost choked on his own saliva. Cough, cough. when Xiren looked at the majestic waterfall in front of him and said, "Senior Yu, are you talking about this waterfall?" Yu Hong nodded. "Of course it's this waterfall. But Senior, aren't you going to teach us swordsmanship?" Shang Waningying was a little confused. There didn't seem to be an absolute relationship between the two. "I want you to use your swords to cut open this waterfall. When you can cut open this waterfall, it will prove that your swordsmanship has improved." Yu Hong did not say much. He carried the snacks and walked towards the wooden house. Everyone looked at each other as they gazed at Yu Hong's back. It was already extremely difficult for them to stand in the middle of such a waterfall without being washed away, let alone cut it apart with a sword. Chapter 5688. Grandpa Yu has already left. Hurry up and train. Don't waste any more time. Zhong Limu laughed. Looking at Zhong Limu's expression, Xiren's lips twitched. "Are you sure you're not joking with us?" Since Yu Hong had already said so, everyone felt that it was impossible for him to make up something like this just to tease them. Hence, everyone began to move. When Xiren's body moved, directly in front of the waterfall, in the middle of the river, there was no place to stand in the middle of the river, so he could only cover his feet with elemental energy and control his body to stand on the water surface. When Xiren held a sharp sword in his hand and was about to slash forward when a sudden wave came from the rushing river, washing him far away. "Ah!" when Xiren shouted, but his voice was drowned out by the sound of the rushing river. When Xiren only managed to climb out of the river when he reached the downstream. Seeing this scene, everyone looked at each other in dismay. In front of such a terrifying nature, their strength paled in comparison. Most importantly, standing on the water surface was already unstable, and they would face the pressure of the rushing river at any time. It was simply too difficult to do this. However, none of them chose to give up. One by one, they rushed to the middle of the river and began to try. However, although it was beautiful to imagine, it was extremely difficult to put it into practice. If they were not careful, they would follow in Xiren's footsteps. Ouch! Voices rang out one after another. In a short period of time, everyone's clothes were drenched in sweat. When Xiren walked out of the river again, he could not help but look at Zhong Limu and ask, "Are you sure Senior Yu is not joking with us?" Zhong Limu shook his head. "Of course not. I used to train like this too." His words immediately attracted everyone's attention. Everyone looked at Zhong Limu curiously. "You used to train like this too? Then did you succeed?" "Of course." Zhong Limu nodded matter-of-factly. "But it was Grandpa who allowed me to train here. At that time, he told me to train here nonstop. If I did not succeed, I was not allowed to learn anything else. When I first started, I was like all of you. I was often washed downstream by the rushing river. However, after a long time, I gained some experience and slowly got better. So, you can cut this waterfall in half." Everyone's eyes lit up. The waterfall in front of them was so shocking. Even if they used all their skills, they could only form a crack that was 100 meters long on the waterfall, which would disappear very quickly. If they wanted to cut the entire waterfall in two, the difference was too great. "Sure." Zhong Limu took a step forward. "Since you don't believe me, I'll show you." Seeing this, everyone walked to the riverbank and looked at Zhong Limu expectantly. Zhong Limu's figure flashed and landed in the middle of the riverbank. He ignored the rushing water as his gaze landed on the magnificent waterfall in front of him. In the next moment, he raised the sharp sword in his hand. The origin energy in his body gushed out, and a terrifying aura instantly expanded. Then, he slashed forward with his sword. It was an indomitable sword, as if it was the sharpest weapon in the world. It cut through the air, space, and everything. Chapter 5689. At this moment, no one was in the mood to pay attention to the pain because the scene before their eyes was simply too shocking. The mighty waterfall that seemed capable of washing away everything was suddenly split into two distinct waterfalls by a beam of golden sword chi. This ray of sword energy was incomparably sharp. Not only did it cut the waterfall in half, it also cut through space itself. Most importantly, even though Zhong Limu had already put away his sword, the waterfall did not immediately close up. Instead, it paused for a few seconds before merging back together. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at each other, their faces filled with amazement. Even though it was only a few seconds, in reality, against a waterfall like this, it was extremely difficult to stay even a second longer. Previously, when they tried to cut through the waterfall, they only managed to create a small crack. In the blink of an eye, the crack disappeared as if it was never there. In comparison, the difference was obvious. Xiren stared blankly at the scene before him. He no longer thought that Senior Yu was joking with them. If they could really learn this move, then it would be incredible. At least, based on the people they had met so far, there were not many who could withstand this move. Zhongli Mu, this move of yours is too powerful. Shang Wanning could not help but exclaim. She clasped her hands in front of her chest, and her delicate face was full of admiration. Zhongli Mu scratched the back of his head embarrassedly. His young and inexperienced face was filled with shyness. This move of mine is actually nothing. You guys haven't seen Grandpa Yu's move. It's much stronger than mine. Regarding this, no one doubted it. Even though Grandpa Yu had never made a move and looked like an ordinary old man, they all knew very well that once this old man made a move, it would be earth-shattering. Zhongli Mu, now we are all confident. Di Beichun smiled faintly. His deep and charming eyes were full of confidence. As long as there was something to gain, no matter how difficult the process was, they could persevere. Not only Di Beichun, but everyone else's heart was ignited with hope. As long as they could learn this move, their fighting abilities would greatly increase. For a moment, no one doubted this sword training method anymore. One by one, they rushed to the center of the river and began to practice facing the waterfall. Facing this river that was hundreds of meters wide, even if everyone stood side by side in the middle of the river, they still seemed extremely small. As he swung his sword again and again, his attribute power continued to surge out and infuse into the sword. However, compared to the river, the sword chi that he swung out was undoubtedly extremely small. The river was turbulent, and waves came one after another. Just maintaining balance and standing on the surface of the river was already difficult enough, let alone swinging a sword. The moment he swung his sword, balance was the most difficult to grasp. If he was not careful, he would be swept away by the waves. Ah! A familiar voice rang out, but it was drowned out by the river in an instant. Plop, plop. The sound of things falling into the water continued to ring out. Even under the sun, everyone's clothes were still wet. After failing again and again, the crowd came up from the bottom of the river again and again. Unlike their previous helplessness, no matter how many times they failed, the faith in their eyes never wavered. Again and again, he tried again and again, trying again and again. Chapter 5690. Although the sword chi of the people in front of him could not be compared to his own, he could tell from the burning flames in their eyes that they were determined and serious. His grandfather had said that Beichun and the others were talented in cultivation, but their environment was different from his. Their cultivation resources were not as good as his, so their strength was not as good as his. He had been cultivating with his grandfather since he was young. Granny Hua would often refine pills for him, and he had almost never stopped taking medicinal baths. If Beichun and the others were in such an environment, their strength would probably not be weaker than his. When Xiren walked up from the bottom of the river again, his steps were no longer as steady and fast as before. His delicate and elegant face showed unconcealable tiredness, and he could not help but pant as he walked, and he was holding a fish in his hand. When I fell down just now, I hit a fish, and it seemed to have fainted. I think we can make a fish dish tonight. Xiren raised the fish in his hand, and a bright smile appeared on his face again. After seeing Xiren's funny look, the others, who were also tired, could not help but chuckle. Good idea. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded, and a playful and mischievous smile appeared on her exquisite face. She was like a forest elf, extremely cute. Xiren, how big is your body to be able to knock this fish out? Why didn't I do the same? Shangguan Yingying scolded with a smile, but the smile in her eyes could not be stopped. I think this fish must have seen me working too hard, so it fainted on purpose. Reward me well. Xiren said proudly. Everyone looked at each other. This guy was as thick-skinned as ever. Why don't we catch a fish if one of us falls down? How about it? Xiren looked interested. Although this river is wide and rapid, the water is clear. The fish should taste very delicious. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at the fish in Xiren's hand. This fish was obviously different from the fish they usually saw. Its body was more beautiful, and its scales reflected a dazzling light under the sun. With just a glance, she could tell that the fish must be more chewy than usual. The river here is rapid. Ordinary fish cannot survive here. This fish is indeed different. I believe it will taste good. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, when Xiren's face also showed interest. Really? Of course. If you don't believe me, ask Ying. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. I believe you. When Xiren's eyebrows raised and smiled, he raised the fish in his hand. Di Beichan looked at the interested when Xiren and shook his head helplessly. This guy hasn't changed at all after so many years. Hearing you say that, you seem to have seen it many times? Mo Yunjue said. I always felt that with my talent and cultivation, it should be more than that. Now I have finally found the reason. Di Beichan sighed. As soon as these words came out, everyone turned their heads and looked at Di Beichan doubtfully. What reason? In the past, when I was cultivating, this guy would always interrupt and drag me to do other things. This was very common. Di Beichan looked at Wen Xiren with a smile, looking like he was going to settle scores. Chapter 5691. Night slowly fell, and the abandoned immortal forest was shrouded in darkness. The moonlight reflected off the surface of the river. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest tried again and again, as if they did not feel the passage of time. It's getting late, let's go back. Zhongli Mu stood up and reminded everyone who was still cultivating. However, everyone seemed to be numb to it, and they continued to practice like machines. They did not know when they would be able to master this move, but they knew that Zhongli Mu had tried millions of times before he succeeded. No matter what kind of martial skill it would definitely become a powerful killing weapon after practicing it millions of times. Granny and the rest should be hungry. Zhongli Mu said again. The weather had been getting colder recently, and the sky was getting dark earlier. However, it was time to go back. As soon as these words came out, everyone who was still immersed in cultivation immediately came back to their senses. Bailey Hongzhuang stopped what she was doing and quickly jumped onto the shore. Looking at the sky, she was shocked. I didn't expect it to be so late. You're all so focused. Zhongli Mu smiled. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest so serious, he could not help but think of himself when he was young. In the beginning, he was not so serious. On the contrary, he would often slack off. However, his grandfather would always chase after him with a wooden stick, urging him every day. Gradually, it became a habit for him. In comparison, he was not serious at all. Let's go back quickly. Senior and the rest are hungry. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at everyone. It's really late today. Everyone nodded. They had agreed that they would be in charge of cooking, and the senior would guide them in their cultivation. Now that the senior had started to guide them, they could not forget their duties. At the same time, Yu Hong and Ho Shukong were sitting outside the house, looking at the stars in the sky with a relaxed expression. Old Yu, did you teach them swordsmanship today? Hua looked at Yu Hong casually and asked. These little guys have been cooking for us for so many days, it's time for them to start cultivating. Yu Hong picked up a cup of tea from the side and took a sip before continuing. However, they brought another little fellow today. They said that he's their good brother. Ho Shukong glanced at Yu Hong and looked away. I can tell from your expression that you've been bribed. This newcomer is not bad. He even brought a greeting gift. If that's the case, doesn't that mean you'll have to teach anyone in the future? Hua Hua's eyes turned serious. Yu Hong waved his hand. Of course not. I only agreed because I'm very satisfied with these little fellows. I'll only do this once, and there won't be a next time. Hua Hua snorted coldly. What delicious food did this little guy use to bribe you? Then shouldn't we wait for them to come back? Yu Hong looked away guiltily. Old man Yu, I've known you for so many years. How could I not know what kind of person you are? Hua sneered. I smelled the snacks on you as soon as you came back. The older you get, the more you like to eat alone. Look at what you're saying. I just ate a little while I was at it. When Zhongli Shaoran walked over, he saw the three old fellows sitting in the courtyard and frowned slightly. Mu'er, and the rest aren't back yet? Chapter 5692. Hearing that, Zhongli Shaoran did not ask any more questions. Instead, he found a seat and sat down. This smell? Old Lady Hua, you've prepared a medicinal bath? Your nose is quite sharp. Zhongli Shaoran's eyes flashed with surprise. From the thickness of the medicinal smell, you've prepared quite a bit. You can't be biased, right? Hua Er's face was calm. I'm a fair person, unlike a certain fellow who likes to eat alone. Cough, cough. Knowing that Hua Er was talking about him, Yu Hong coughed dryly. Since he was already feeling guilty, he could only remain silent. Why are you few old fellows so free? Zhongli Shaoran did not understand. Don't you usually dislike trouble? He had known these few old fellows for quite some time. Naturally, he knew their personalities. Thinking back to when he asked these three fellows to teach Mu'er some skills, they were still hesitant. Although they agreed in the end, he still had to put in a lot of effort. After that, some cultivators from the abandoned immortal forest came to ask for guidance. However, these few fellows had no intention of teaching them at all. Everyone returned empty-handed. This time Mu'er got to know these few young people. Although he agreed to cultivate with Mu'er, he did not have any intention of teaching them. He knew that these few young people were not from the immortal domain. It should be a coincidence that they came here. However, he did not know what treasure they used to come here. However, these few old fellows were not normal. This made him very surprised. Indeed, we don't like trouble. However, these few fellows are not troublesome either. Hua Shukong slowly said, these few fellows' eyes are very pure. Perhaps they've been in the abandoned immortal forest for too long and found it boring. Isn't it good to have a few young people to add some life? Indeed, eating tasteless food all day long. My mouth is so bland. Yu Hong sighed. It's so good now. Most importantly, it's pleasing to the eyes. Hua Er's face was full of satisfaction. Look at how good these few fellows are. It's much better than looking at your faces all day long. Old Lady Hua, you can praise others if you want. Why do you have to bring me into it? Yu Hong was unhappy. When I was young, I also charmed thousands of girls. TSK, forget it. Zhongli Shaoran looked at the three old men in front of him. He didn't know if the situation was as simple as they said. He was quite fond of these young people. However, to be able to make these three old fellows act out of character, it could be considered their ability. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others returned, they saw the four seniors waiting for them in the courtyard. They immediately felt even more guilty. Senior, we're sorry. We came back late. Everyone hurriedly apologized. Let's go prepare dinner. Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying quickly walked to the kitchen. When Xiren raised the bamboo basket in his hand and said with a smile, we caught a lot of fresh fish today. The four seniors looked at everyone and didn't say anything. However, when their gazes landed on Mo Yunjua, they couldn't help but size him up a little more. This was the first time they had seen this young man. Chapter 5693. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others breathed a sigh of relief when they came to the kitchen. They had been worried that they would be scolded for coming back late. Now they were the ones asking for help. Even if the seniors seemed to be easy to get along with, if they were slightly dissatisfied, they would have no chance at all. It seems that the four seniors are in a good mood. They didn't complain about us coming back late. Shangguan Yingying breathed a sigh of relief. We have to cook a few dishes tonight. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. The fish Xiren caught looks good. Of course, the fish I caught are of different species, but I'll have to rely on your skills to cook. Xiren looked proud. Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying were very fast, and with the help of others, their speed was even faster. Plate after plate of dishes were served. In addition to some local specialties they bought from the Emperor Cloud City, a table of dishes was soon ready. After preparing some things, Bailey Hongzhuang sat down weakly. After practicing for the whole day, her right hand was a little numb from swinging the sword. Coupled with the washing of the river, her right hand was a little tired. Bailey Hongzhuang was thinking about whether or not she should use silver needles to help everyone relieve the sore and swollen feeling. Only then could they continue to practice tomorrow in a good state. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to bear it for a few days. However, at this moment, the figure of Hua Hua appeared in front of everyone. You must be hungry too, right? Come and eat with us. Everyone smiled and waved their hands. Granny Hua, we're not hungry. Don't say that. Come quickly. Otherwise, we'll be the ones who mistreat you. Granny Hua smiled. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other, but still followed behind Granny Hua. Yu Hong looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others who were slightly restrained. He smiled and waved his hand. Little guys, just treat us as your elders. Don't be shy. Thank you, senior. Wu Kong smiled. How are the results of your practice today? Everyone looked at each other, looking a little embarrassed. We didn't have any results today. Old man Hua, aren't you talking nonsense? Yu Hong waved his hand. It's impossible to master it in a day or two. You can only succeed if you practice day and night. Senior Yu, we will definitely work hard in our cultivation. Yu Hong nodded slightly. I know that all of you have been training very hard, so Granny Hua has prepared a gift for all of you. Granny Hua, everyone was surprised. If you're done eating, go to the house over there. I prepared a medicinal bath for you. After a day of high-intensity cultivation, soak in the medicinal bath and cultivate. Your cultivation speed will greatly increase. Everyone's eyes lit up. Previously, they had heard from Zhongli Mu that he would often soak in medicinal baths after cultivating. They did not expect that they would have the opportunity to do so. Thank you, Grandma Hua. Everyone bowed, expressing their gratitude with words and expressions. Although he hadn't soaked in it before, he could guess that the ingredients used for this medicinal bath weren't simple. When everyone saw the bathtubs in front of them, they were touched. The material of the bathtub looked very new. Obviously, it was specially prepared for them in the past 2 days. Bali Yin Che opened his eyes and raised his eyebrows. Of course. Do you want to try? Xiao Xuanzi nodded. Yes, but it's inconvenient for you to be covered in hair. I think we should forget about it. Bali Yin Che chuckled. Why don't you transform into a human too? You've already succeeded anyway. That's right. Now that things have come to this, you don't have to be so secretive. We're all men. What are you afraid of? Xiren also spoke up. Until now, Xiao Xuanzi had not transformed into a human in front of them, and they could not help but be curious. Xiao Xuanzi, this is a good opportunity. Isn't it great to cultivate with us every day? Di Beichen said. Chapter 5695. Seeing Xiao Xuanzi's firm refusal, everyone looked at each other and felt a little helpless. In my opinion, Xiao Xuanzi is too fat. He doesn't even dare to let us see his real face. When Xiren couldn't help but laugh. Speaking of which, we really don't have any fatties in our team. Xiao Xuanzi, it's not a bad idea for you to join us and enrich our team. I don't want to. Xiao Xuanzi snorted, walked to the side, and sat down. And Mo Yunjue glanced at Xiren and said, Xiren, you're thinking that if Xiao Xuanzi joins us, then you'll have someone to scapegoat for you, right? As soon as he said that, Di Beichen and Bai Lian Che also reacted. Recalling Yu Hong's look of disdain when he talked about Xiren, after thinking about it carefully, it was indeed possible. Ahem. Being poked at the key point, Xiren glanced around, wanting to change the topic, but found that the 3 people's eyes were still on him. Obviously, he couldn't avoid it, so he could only helplessly say, Who asked you guys to look so devilish? In the past, at least I had Ling Xiao as my companion, but now, Ling Xiao isn't here. I'm the only one left. Can't you guys understand me? Do you think I'm easy? Hearing Xiren's sorrowful question, the 3 people's lips twitched slightly. Why are you guys looking at me like that? Seeing the 3 people looking at him strangely, Xiren couldn't help but ask. Taha. The 3 people laughed. Bai Lian Che even held his stomach, tears coming out of the corner of his eyes. Xiren, you're a man. We didn't notice that you care so much about this problem. I don't want to care. Xiren rolled his eyes. Look at Granny Hua and the others. This is an era where looks matter, Sai. Bailey Hongzhuang sat in the bathtub, closed her eyes, and began to cultivate the demon summoning scripture. The rich vitality in the air was mixed with the pure medicinal power of the medicinal bath as she breathed in and out. It merged into her body and entered her limbs and bones. It flowed along her meridians and finally merged into her dantian. Ling and Shangguan Yingying were also focused on cultivating, unwilling to waste any time. The next day, Bailey Hongzhuang opened her eyes when the first rays of the morning sun shone into the room. Feeling that the water in the bathtub was still warm, a trace of surprise appeared in his eyes. It's really interesting that the water temperature can be maintained like this. After hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's voice, Shangguan Yingying and Ling also exited their cultivation state. They saw that the originally rich color of the potion had gradually become transparent. It was obvious that the potion had been absorbed by their bodies. Other than that, some stains could be vaguely seen, which were discharged from their bodies. These stains are somewhat similar to the stains we get when we cleanse our marrow and meridians. Could it be that this medicinal bath has such an effect? Shangguan Yingying said, in surprise. Marrow and meridians cleansing could improve a cultivator's physique, making it more suitable for cultivation. However, after a cultivator had undergone the first cleansing, it would be extremely difficult for them to achieve a similar effect again. Now, they had only soaked in a medicinal bath once, and it had such an effect. It was really a surprise. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the water in the bathtub, her clear eyes filled with surprise and surprise. That's right, it does have such an effect. Chapter 5696. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. I had a similar opportunity before, so there were fewer impurities. Back then, in Bai Yunjiao's historical remains, she soaked in the pool and her body improved. Although these differences weren't obvious, one could feel the difference when cultivating. This was due to the fact that not many impurities were discharged. However, just being able to do this was already very shocking. I wonder what ingredients Granny Hua added. Bailey Hongzhuang was amazed. She was sure that Granny Hua's medical skills were amazing. Even though the immortal region had more spiritual herbs than the upper realm, she believed that not everyone could create such a medicinal bath. Zhongli Mu had soaked in this medicinal bath since he was young, so the impurities in his body must have been expelled. It was no wonder that his cultivation talent was so shocking. If she was able to learn the prescription and bring back the spiritual grasses from the abandoned immortal forest, she would be able to hand them over to the elders. Presumably, the elders' strength would also increase. However, although Granny Hua was easy to get along with, she might not be willing to teach this method to others. Furthermore, Granny Hua had only agreed to guide them in their cultivation. Hongzhuang, what are you thinking about? Shangguan Yingying waved her hand in front of Bailey Hongzhuang's face when she saw that she was suddenly lost in thought. Bailey Hongzhuang returned to her senses and shook her head with a smile. Nothing. Let's go out. Prepare a simple breakfast. We should go out and cultivate. Ling was not good at cooking, but she had learned a little from following Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying. At least, the task of preparing the side dishes was now in her hands. With a wave of her hand, the ingredients were cleanly processed. When Di Beichen and the rest came out, they realized that breakfast was already prepared. Everyone immediately walked towards the waterfall. As they walked, they munched on their dry rations. When they arrived, everyone could immediately enter cultivation mode. The morning air was slightly chilly. The cold wind blew on everyone's bodies, making their clothes seem slightly thin. However, everyone's eyes were burning with the flames of war, as if they couldn't feel the cold at all. In the next moment, everyone's figures flashed and arrived on the surface of the river. Originally, just standing here was already very difficult. Every wave that came was a test for them. It wasn't until last night that everyone managed to hold on for a little longer. However, after a night of rest, there seemed to be a sense of unfamiliarity. Plop, plop. A loud splash was heard, and everyone was accidentally washed downstream again. The river water was bone-chillingly cold, and even his body stiffened a little. Once again, he would return and join the group practicing his swordsmanship, and the cycle would repeat. After falling into the water 3 times in a row, everyone finally regained the feeling they had last night and stood a little more firmly. Of course, he would still accidentally fall into the water from time to time, but the frequency was undoubtedly lower than yesterday. When Granny Hua and the rest woke up, they found that breakfast was already prepared, and Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest were nowhere to be seen. These little guys are really serious about cultivation. They are quite similar to me in the past. Hua Shukong chuckled, and there was a trace of satisfaction in his voice. Chapter 5697. Previously, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had been staying in the wooden house. Because Yu Hong had not yet taught them how to cultivate, they spent most of their time here. They would only follow him out to cultivate if he came. He didn't expect them to leave first today. Of course, you're the laziest one. Granny Hua smiled. Yu Hong nodded. I remember was always lazy when he was cultivating. It was Zhong Likong who chased after him with a wooden stick every day that forced him to cultivate. Isn't that so? If had been so diligent, his cultivation would be much higher now. Hua Shukong laughed. Zhong Limu's face turned red when he heard everyone's words. He hurriedly said, I know. I'll go cultivate now. As soon as he finished speaking, Zhong Limu ran away like a wisp of smoke. If he continued to stay here, he was afraid that even his grandfather would scold him. Everyone laughed even more when they saw Zhong Limu run faster than a rabbit. Muir is simple and honest. He just said a few words and ran away. Zhong Lishao shook his head. Looks like it doesn't need to be supervised with these little fellows here. Is usually with us old fellows and rarely sees people of the same generation. That's why he doesn't feel nervous. Now that he knows how people of the same generation cultivate, he knows what's going on. This is a good thing. Hua Shukong smiled. I think you're here to freeload. These little fellows have already prepared breakfast before they left. When Zhong Limu arrived at the waterfall, he discovered that everyone was there. From the looks of it, everyone had been cultivating here for quite some time. I didn't expect you to come so early. When I went to Granny Hua's place to look for you, you weren't there. Hearing Zhong Limu's familiar voice, everyone turned around and smiled. You're here. We thought that you usually wake up a little late, so we didn't disturb you. Zhong Limu curled his lips. I woke up late today and got scolded by my grandfather. Looks like I'll have to wake up early tomorrow. You'll have to call me. Everyone was slightly taken aback. They did not expect such a situation to occur. They all nodded and said, We will definitely call you in the future. Seeing this, Zhong Limu smiled and said, Then all of you should stay here and cultivate properly. If you want to stand firmly on the surface of the river, you have to control your elemental energy to the smallest detail. This doesn't have much to do with strength. All you need to do is train more. I'm going to cultivate above the waterfall. Understood. Everyone nodded. In fact, they had also realized this during the day of cultivation. The reason why they fell into the river was because they did not have enough control over their essence energy, so they could not stand steadily on the surface of the river. Once the waves hit, the water surface would become different. He had to control it immediately, or he wouldn't be able to stand firm. Normally, everyone would pay attention to improving their control over their origin energy when they were cultivating. However, the requirements at that time were not high, so it did not appear to be difficult. But now that the requirements were higher, his control paled in comparison. Zhong Limu, why are you training at the waterfall? Shangguan Yingying asked. Grandpa said that my movement technique is not good enough. If I follow the waterfall upstream and succeed, my movement technique will improve greatly. Chapter 5698. Even though they were a certain distance away from the waterfall, they could still feel the force of the water rushing down. Looking at the height of the waterfall, wasn't it too difficult to walk up directly? For a moment, the corners of everyone's lips twitched slightly. This kind of cultivation method was really an eye-opener for them. I finally understand why Zhong Limu's strength is so terrifying despite being younger than us. Xiran sighed. His cultivation method is really too terrifying. Di Baichen nodded slightly. Although this cultivation method is very simple, it's much more difficult than our usual cultivation. Whether it was for them to practice their swordsmanship here, or for Zhongli Mu to practice his movement technique, it was very simple to do, but it was very difficult to do. However, it could be seen from Zhongli Mu that once it was done, it would definitely not only improve in one aspect. Until now, I can only walk halfway up the waterfall before I'll be washed down by the water. However, I believe that as long as I practice for a while more, I'll succeed. I'll go first. Zhongli Mu waved his hand. His youthful face was filled with endless youth under the sunlight, and his bright and sunny appearance gave everyone more motivation. Come, let's continue to practice and strive to succeed as soon as possible. On this day, when Xiren used his fishing techniques to catch a lot of fish, naturally, he couldn't avoid making fish for dinner. However, he changed the cooking method today, and it tasted very good. In the following days, everyone was busy with their cultivation. When they returned, Granny Hua would prepare a medicinal bath for them. Regarding this, everyone expressed their gratitude, and Granny Hua's face was full of kindness. Cultivating in this medicinal bath allowed everyone's cultivation to increase extremely quickly. Furthermore, the origin energy here was much denser and purer than the upper realm. Gradually, everyone was able to stand on the surface of the river without worrying about falling down. This discovery made everyone happy. Although their sword aura didn't improve much, being able to stand here was already a huge improvement. Usually because they would always fall into the river and walk back from downstream. Most of their time was spent on this. Now, everyone could wholeheartedly practice their swordsmanship, swinging the sword continuously. It was just a simple movement, but everyone made some discoveries in the process of swinging the sword continuously. As their control of origin energy increased, they also discovered a sharp difference when swinging the sword. For example, how to use origin energy to produce a greater effect with the same amount of origin energy. Perhaps they didn't pay too much attention to this point on normal days. When releasing a martial skill, they paid more attention to the might of the martial skill. But now, they realized that controlling origin power was also a profound knowledge. The more origin energy they conserve, the longer their battle power, and if they could accurately control every bit of origin energy without wasting it, it meant that their battle power. Zhongli Mu is right. In the process of cultivation, other than the improvement of sword qi, there are many other aspects that are quietly improving. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes fell on the figure on top of the waterfall. This time, they had seen how serious and terrifying Zhongli Mu's cultivation was. Previously, they were often swept away by the river, but Zhongli Mu was completely submerged by the river. Chapter 56-99. Under the majestic waterfall, Zhongli Mu's figure seemed extremely small. The huge waves crashed on his body and directly pushed him to the bottom of the river. However, Zhongli Mu was also very resilient and quickly made a comeback. Therefore, when everyone practiced swinging their swords, they could only watch as Zhongli Mu continuously tried and failed. Defeated and still fighting. When Xiren was curious about how difficult Zhongli Mu's move was, so he personally gave it a try. The result was undoubtedly heartbreaking. Before he could even take a few steps forward, he was already submerged by the waterfall. He had to drink a few mouthfuls of water before he could emerge. Di Beichan, Imo Yinjue, and Bali Yin Che also gave it a try. Their cultivation levels were slightly higher than Xiren's, but they only managed to take a few more steps forward. In front of the waterfall, they were extremely small. The difficulty level increased with every step forward. Based on their current situation, it was undoubtedly very far for them to reach Zhongli Mu's current level. This gap is really too big. Xiren sighed. We still have a lot of training to do. After Mo Yunjue experienced this gap, the way he looked at Zhongli Mu also changed. If Zhongli Mu goes to the upper realm, I'm afraid no one will be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Di Beichan nodded and looked at the young man in the beast robe. Such a genius was really outstanding. I used to think that there were too many outstanding geniuses in the upper realm. But in front of Zhongli Mu, those geniuses are all overshadowed. There are also many geniuses in the upper realm. Everyone is working hard to cultivate. While we've been here, I think Junling Xuan and Xiao So are also working hard to cultivate. Mo Yunjue's eyes darkened. Although he felt that Mu Jin's character was not very good, he could see that this guy was also tenacious when he was in the Immortal Cloud secret realm. This time, after being defeated by Hong Zhuang, the possibility of him giving up was not very high. Instead, it was more likely that he would work hard. Are we also working hard to cultivate? Di Beichun smiled faintly, but a cold light flashed in his eyes. The next time we meet, we'll see. In the blink of an eye, 2 months passed. Other than when Xiren and Shangwan Yingying, everyone else's strength stopped at Nebula Stage 9. According to Granny Hua, there was no need to rush to break through at this time. The most important thing was to accumulate. Among them, the first to sense the possibility of breakthrough was by Li Yanche. Originally, his strength was slightly weaker than Ling, but now they were on par. Because of the existence of the seal, Ling found it even more difficult to break through. After Bai Li Yanche sensed the opportunity to break through, he had been suppressing it. He had no intention of breaking through. It will be interesting if we break through at the same time, Bai Li Yanche said with a smile. Let's take advantage of this opportunity. Wait for me and Yingying. Xiren's face was filled with joy. Normally, your breakthroughs are too fast. Yingying and I can't catch up to you. Now, this is a good opportunity. I don't think so. Di Beichun raised his eyebrows. Beichun, you'll get beaten up like this. Xiren threatened. With your strength? Forget I said that. Chapter 5700. Normally, everyone would spend most of their time cultivating on the surface of the river, and when it was time to eat, the men would go around hunting demonic beasts. After a while, they naturally became familiar with each other. On this day, when Bailey Hong Zhuang and the others were cultivating, Xiao Xuanzi suddenly looked ahead with excitement. Wow, it's so beautiful. The sudden voice attracted everyone's attention. Everyone turned their heads and looked in the direction Xiao Xuanzi was looking at. They didn't know what this guy was talking about. However, when they saw the figure in front of them, they were all stunned. An imperial windhorse elephant appeared in everyone's line of sight. Its rumbling sound revealed its weight. Its body was huge, but its lines were very beautiful. The imperial windhorse elephant is the descendant of a hippopotamus and an elephant. It's very good at speed and is a very powerful existence among the demonic beasts. Zhong Limu noticed Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' curious looks and immediately explained with a smile. This guy is very good at speed. Mo Yunjue was a little surprised. This guy in front of him was so huge, it didn't look like it was strong and healthy. Zhong Limu nodded slightly. You can't judge a book by its cover. It's the same for beasts. Little Blossom, you're here. Zhong Limu waved his hand at the imperial wind horse elephant. He was very familiar with it. The imperial wind horse elephant slowly walked to Zhong Limu's side and rubbed against him. It was very friendly. However, when it looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, it was undoubtedly a little more distant. Little Blossom? Shangwan Yingying's lips twitched. This imperial windhorse elephant looked so domineering. Why did it have such an unsuitable name? Without waiting for Zhong Limu's explanation, Xiao Xuanzi said with a silly smile, "It's originally as beautiful as a flower." Everyone couldn't help but shiver. Looking at Xiao Xuanzi's love-struck expression, they suddenly felt that their aesthetic standards were a little different from Xiao Xuanzi's. Previously, I thought that Xiao Xuanzi's aesthetic standards were quite normal. Could it be that after he gained weight, his aesthetic standards also changed? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichun thoughtfully. Di Beichun's eyes were also filled with doubt. He shook his head and said, I don't know about that. Maybe the demonic beast's sense of beauty is different from ours. In my opinion, little Xuanzi must have been too empty and lonely recently, so he's thinking of love. Xiren's eyes lit up, and he looked like he had found the truth. Hearing Xiren's words, everyone looked at each other. Perhaps there was such a possibility. Zhong Limu, on the other hand, did not notice anything amiss as he explained to everyone, "You all know that Granny Hua's name is Hua, right? Back then, when Little Blossom was injured, it was Granny Hua who treated him. From then on, Little Flower and us got to know each other. Sometimes, when we found some treasures, we would give them to Granny Flower. However, Granny Hua did not accept it as a contract beast, but their relationship was still very good. Granny Hua's name is Hua Hua. So she named him Little Flower. Everyone finally understood. Actually, when they knew Granny Hua's name, they were also a little shocked. After all, this name was really too simple. Now, it seemed that Granny Hua had inherited her parents' tradition. Naming was as simple as always. Master, why do I feel that Granny Hua's naming skills are comparable to yours? Chapter 5701. Bailey Hongzhuang facepalmed. When she first heard the name Little Blossom, she felt helpless. However, after hearing Xiao Hei's words, it seemed that her naming skills were on the same level as Grandma Flower's. At least mine is more suitable for your situation. Bailey Hongzhuang defended herself. Just take it as it is. Xiao Hei spread her hands. She looked like she could say whatever she wanted. Little Blossom, they're my new friends. You haven't been here for a while, so you don't know them. They're now staying at Grandma Flower's house. You will see them often in the future. Let me introduce them to you. Zhong Limu introduced Bailey Hongzhuang and the others to Little Blossom. Only then did the vigilance in Little Blossom's eyes disappear. There was a hint of familiarity. However, facing Xiao Xuanzi's gaze, its gaze changed. Why is this guy looking at me so strangely? So pretty. Xiao Xuanzi looked at Little Blossom with infatuation. When Zhong Limu introduced himself, he took a step forward. Beautiful beast, I am Xiao Xuanzi. Little Blossom looked at Xiao Xuanzi strangely, but didn't say anything. Seeing this, Xiao Xuanzi went to Little Blossom's side. Little Blossom, your name is so nice. I just came to the abandoned immortal forest not long ago. They're all cultivating. It's so boring. Why don't you bring me around? Hose before brothers Di Beichan sighed. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. Looking at Xiao Xuanzi's flattering face, she said, Di Beichan, Xiao Xuanzi is quite good at chasing after beasts. Did he learn it from you? That's not it. Di Beichan shook his head. If you want to talk about spoiling your wife, he should have learned it from me. When I chased after you, Xiao Xuanzi wasn't even born yet. Tisk tsk. Shangguan Ing shrugged. That's too mushy. I can't take it anymore. Let's go cultivate first. I'm afraid Little Xuanzi is gifted in this aspect. When Xiren thought of Little Xuanzi's previous performance and made a judgment, Zhong Limu also noticed that Little Xuanzi was particularly interested in Little Flower. However, he felt that Little Xuanzi wouldn't have much of a chance because Little Flower's standards were very high. As expected, Little Blossom, who had been silent all this while, finally spoke. I'm not free. It was just two simple words, but Xiao Xuanzi's flattering smile immediately froze. Zhong Limu, I'll be leaving first. After Little Flower said that, he turned and walked in another direction. When his huge body walked, there was a rumbling sound again. Xiao Xuanzi, I think you should just forget about it. Di Beichan muttered and was about to pull Xiao Xuanzi to cultivate together. However, when they turned around, everyone realized that Little Xuanzi had already disappeared. They could vaguely hear Xiao Xuanzi's voice. It's okay if you're not free. I'll go with you wherever you want to go. I'm free anyway. Everyone stood stiffly on the spot. They only saw Imperial Windhorse Elephant quickly moving forward with a mystical fire demonic rock following closely beside it. The Imperial Windhorse Elephant seemed to dislike the mystical fire demonic rock and increased its speed. However, the mystical fire demonic rock didn't seem to feel the other party's rejection and continued to follow closely. The Imperial Windhorse Elephant is very good at speed, but the mystical fire demonic rock is also very good at speed. I wonder which one of them is faster? Mo Yunjue coldly said. Chapter 5702. Not long later, Xiao Xuanzi came back, but his face was bruised and swollen. Seeing this scene, everyone was not surprised. After all, this guy was so friendly and was so talkative, the Imperial Windhorse Elephant must not be able to take it, so it directly beat him up. Xiao Xuanzi, that Imperial Windhorse Elephant is bigger than you. I think you won't be able to control it. When Xiren looked at Xiao Xuanzi, who still had a nosebleed on his face, and comforted him. Di Beichun, who was practicing his sword, turned his head and helplessly shook his head. I think that Imperial Windhorse Elephant is stronger than you. You better raise your cultivation first. Xiao Xuanzi's eyes lit up. Master, why did you say the same thing as Little Blossom? It said that I'm not strong enough. It doesn't like me like this. Then you should give up. Xiao Bai rolled his eyes. Among them, Xiao Xuanzi was the one who didn't do his job the most. How can I do that? Xiao Xuanzi's face was serious. Didn't I say? Beating is affection and scolding is love. It beat and scolded me. I think you all know what it means. It said that I'm not strong enough. It must be because it hates iron for not becoming steel. Female beasts always care about their face. Wait until I'm stronger than her. She will accept me. Everyone who was originally sympathetic to Xiao Xuanzi did not want to say anything after hearing Xiao Xuanzi's words. This guy's face was thicker than a city wall. Although his face was injured, his heart was not hurt at all. Am I wrong? Xiao Xuanzi's face was filled with pride. Annoying. Too annoying. Everyone turned their heads. They might as well cultivate. Although everyone was not optimistic about Xiao Xuanzi and Little Blossom, what was worth being happy about was that Xiao Xuanzi was cultivating harder. The mystic fire demon rock was a high-level existence among the beasts. There was a bloodline left behind from ancient times in its body. Its cultivation talent was not weak at all. Once it cultivated with all its might, the results were not bad. Noticing this, everyone revealed a satisfied expression. Although Xiao Xuanzi's love came out of nowhere, it still had the effect of promoting. We've been here for a while. It's time to go back and take a look, Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. Back in the desert world and the ocean world, 3 days inside the desert world was equivalent to 1 day outside. Ever since they came to the abandoned immortal forest, time had returned to normal. Because this was the immortal region, a previously uninhabited world. Indeed, we also need to go back and buy some things. Di Beichun nodded. The most important thing was to see his parents-in-law. They were all used to staying in the abandoned immortal forest, but they couldn't forget about their family. He didn't know if the Xiao family and the Jun family would make any moves in these 2 months. Are you guys going back? Zhong Limu couldn't help but ask when he heard the discussion between Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Di Beichun nodded. Let's go back and take a look today. If everything is fine, we'll come back. All right. Zhong Limu replied with a smile. After making the decision, everyone returned to Granny Hua's residence. It was currently noon. Before they left, they had to complete their mission. When everyone returned, they found Granny Hua brewing medicine in the courtyard. After thinking for a while, everyone guessed that this was probably a medicinal bath prepared for them at night. Why are you back so early today? Chapter 5703. Granny Hua. We were planning to go back today, so we came back first. Bailey Hongzhuang's smile was bright and beautiful. After getting along for 2 months, she really liked this kind and lovely old man. Hearing this, Granny Hua was not surprised. She nodded calmly and smiled. Looks like these old fellows are going to complain while you're gone. Everyone smiled. Now that the seniors' food was spoiled by them, if they were to eat the usual food, they would probably think that it tasted bad. Granny, if there's nothing else, we'll be back soon. Granny Hua stopped what she was doing. I was preparing the medicinal bath for you tonight, but since you're going back today, I'll pass this medicine to you. Everyone was surprised. They had asked about it before, but Granny Hua had never told them. You've consumed a lot of energy during your daily cultivation, so the medicinal bath will be very helpful for your bodies. If you're fine after you go back, continue to soak and don't fall behind. Everyone could not help but feel touched. Thank you, Granny Hua. Granny Hua smiled and waved her hand. You little fellows are really polite. You've been thanking me all day, and you'll learn from Mu-Er in the future. Mu-Er won't thank you. Zhong Limu did not think that he would be pulled out of nowhere, and immediately felt embarrassed. Grandfather said that we're already very familiar with each other, so there's no need for such formalities. That's right. Granny Hua nodded. There's no need for formalities between familiar people. Everyone smiled, knowing that Granny Hua treated them as one of her own. I didn't know that you were going to leave. so I didn't prepare more medicine. Granny Hua turned to look at Bailey Hongzhuang. I see that you've been wanting to learn for a long time, so I'll pass this prescription to you today. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but be stunned. Then, her face was filled with joy. Previously, when she had felt the effects of this medicinal bath, she had hoped to be able to master it. This was because the benefits it provided to cultivators were too great. Expelling the impurities in the body was extremely important to any cultivator, but it was very difficult to do so. She always thought that if she could learn it, she would be able to let her family take a medicinal bath as well. Unfortunately, she didn't know enough about many of the medicinal herbs in the immortal domain. So even if she studied the medicinal herbs in this medicinal bath every day, there were still some aspects that she couldn't determine. She had also tested Granny Hua before, but Granny Hua had never told her. She did not expect Granny Hua to be willing to teach her today. Most importantly, it turned out that Granny Hua had already seen through her thoughts. Before she could say a word of thanks, Bailey Hongzhuang swallowed it back. She then smiled brightly and said, "Granny Hua, you're so nice." Granny Hua smiled and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a satisfied expression. "That's more like it. I see that you seem to be very interested in medicine. If you want to learn, I can teach you when I have time in the future." Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up, and her pretty face became even more dazzling due to her excitement. The corners of her lips kept rising, and it seemed like she was about to lose control. "If Granny is willing to teach, I'll definitely learn it well." Granny Hua chuckled and handed the medicine she had prepared to Bailey Hongzhuang. Then, she wrote another prescription. Chapter 5704. There's still some medicinal ingredients here. You can bring them back. Granny Hua pointed at the medicinal ingredients not far away. These were originally prepared for you guys. Looking in the direction that Granny Hua was pointing at, everyone realized that the medicinal ingredients that Granny Hua had been drying these past few days were all prepared for them. Bailey Hongzhuang, who was proficient in medicinal ingredients, understood that although Granny Hua had been drying medicinal ingredients previously, there weren't so many of them. Later on, these were all prepared for them. Thinking about it, after they went to cultivate, Granny Hua hadn't been idle and had gone to pick medicinal ingredients. Although the abandoned immortal forest was rich in medicinal ingredients, they consumed quite a lot of them every day, so Granny Hua had probably spent a lot of time. For a moment, everyone was moved. Compared to what Granny Hua had done for them, their daily lives were nothing. Before leaving, Granny Hua took out a few medical books and handed them to Bailey Hongzhuang. "If you have time, take a look at these medical books. There are many types of medicinal ingredients in them. Only by understanding the types of medicinal ingredients will you be able to learn faster from me in the future." Looking at the heavy medical books in her hands, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded seriously. "Granny, I will definitely remember the contents of these books. Since you're so serious, I believe you." Granny Hua's eyes were filled with admiration. "It's been a long time since I've seen such lovable children. Go back and come back when you're free. This sword move isn't finished yet." Everyone nodded. After practicing for 2 months, although everyone had made quite a bit of progress compared to when they had just arrived, they were still far from reaching Zhongli Mu's level. "Hongzhuang, your dream has come true. Granny Hua is willing to teach you." Shangguaning Ying had a smile on her face. She knew that Hongzhuang had this thought, but she didn't say it out loud. "That's right," Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. "Granny Hua isn't only skilled in medicine, she's also skilled in alchemy. Previously, President Liu told me that a grade 10 alchemist is much stronger than a grade 9 alchemist. Previously, I didn't know the difference between a grade 10 alchemist and a grade 10 alchemist, but I'm certain that Granny Hua is an existence that surpasses a grade 10 alchemist." Her ink-black phoenix eyes were filled with certainty. Even though she had never truly seen Granny Hua concoct dawn, she could feel the strength of Granny Hua's foundation just by looking at her occasionally. An alchemist who surpasses the 10th grade? Xiren couldn't help but be surprised. He's actually that powerful? Not only Granny Hua, but the other seniors are also very powerful existences. Di Beichen's face turned serious. Even such a peerless expert lives in the abandoned immortal forest. I wonder how terrifying the immortal domain is. Hearing this, everyone couldn't help but fall silent. The current situation in the sky had already made them deeply aware of how terrifying the immortal domain was. The difference in strength between the upper realm and the immortal domain was truly shocking. Back then, even by Yunjiao and He, Shunjun couldn't escape this calamity. Let's not think about this for now. In any case, we still have time. Bailey Hongzhuang's laughter broke the heavy atmosphere. Don't all experts cultivate? Who knows, when the time comes, we might also become experts in the immortal domain. That's right, I have confidence in us. Shang Guanying raised her arms high, with a face full of confidence. After coming out of the primordial chaos ring, everyone opened the room. Chapter 5705. If you come out, we have something to talk about. When they saw the note on the door, everyone looked at each other and immediately walked out. Di Beichun, Hongzhuang, you guys go and see what's going on. We'll wait here for your news. Mo Yunjue said in a deep voice. Okay, then we'll go first. Di Beichun nodded. He didn't say anything else and quickly rushed out with Bailey Hongzhuang. They didn't know when this note was written, and they didn't know if it was too late. Logically speaking, everything has been very calm for a while. There shouldn't be any problems. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned and kept thinking, could it be that the Xiao family and the Jun family did something again? I don't know. Di Beichun shook his head. The Xiao family and the Jun family don't dare to confront us directly. If they called us here, then it should be about Jun Lingxuan and Xiao Shou. The two immediately rushed to the patriarch's residence and met Di Xiaofeng on the way. Seeing the two appear, Di Xiaofeng let out a sigh of relief. You two finally appeared. Big brother, what happened? Actually, it's not a big deal. It's just that the Xiao family and the Jun family have some movements recently. Father wants to inform you in advance. Also, there's an opportunity to gain experience. Father wants us to go together. After hearing this news, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun let out a sigh of relief. As long as it wasn't a very serious matter, then they could think of a way to deal with it. Father happens to be in the study. You guys can go directly. Okay. When Di Yujue saw Di Beichun and Mo Yunjue, a comfortable smile appeared on his face. You're out? Di Beichun smiled and nodded. You can say so. Di Yujue carefully sized up the two of them, and a wisp of surprise quietly flashed across his brows. He has already broken through to Nebula Stage 9. It seems that the results of this period of seclusion are not bad. Father, we've always been working hard on our cultivation. We don't dare to slack off at all. Di Beichun was all smiles. Although they had been practicing their swordsmanship for a while, their cultivation was also steadily improving. This speed was even faster than when he cultivated all day. It was precisely because he had exhausted all his origin power that his cultivation speed was even faster. Zhongli Mu had been using this method to cultivate since he was young. It was hard for him not to improve his strength. I can see that. Di Yujue nodded. His handsome face had one word written on it, satisfaction. Father, I heard from Big Brother that the Jun family and the Xiao family seem to have made some moves. Di Beichun returned to the main topic. He was still very concerned about this point. Di Yujue's expression also became more serious as he said, Indeed, this is the news I heard a few days ago. I heard that Jun Lingxuan and Xiao Shou found a new master and are now learning from that master. It can be said that they're improving at lightning speed. New master? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. Which powerful senior is it? This person is called Shuyu. He is a famous expert in the upper realm. Usually, there are many cultivators who want to learn from him, but he has never taken in any disciples. I don't know why he took in Xiao Shou and Jun Lingxuan as his disciples this time. Di Yujue's face darkened. When he heard this news, his heart sank. This wasn't good news at all. Chapter 5706. If it was someone else, I wouldn't have to worry. However, Shuyu is different. Shuyu is a publicly recognized expert. I heard that there is a higher realm beyond the upper realm. However, that person was very vague about it. Even if I wanted to know more about it, I didn't have the chance to. This Shu, you had once been to that higher world. Di Yujue's face darkened. He looked at the sky outside the house. I want to see that person before. His cultivation and knowledge are far beyond ordinary cultivators. However, he rejected Xiao Feng as his disciple. All these years, he hasn't accepted any disciples. I thought that he had given up on the idea. I didn't expect them to take the initiative. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun looked at each other. They were surprised. They wanted to ask Di Yujue about this. However, they didn't expect Di Yujue to bring it up first. If they guessed correctly, the higher realm should be the crossing immortal domain. However, they didn't know how Shuyu came back after going to the crossing immortal domain. Father, is the place you're talking about the crossing immortal domain? Di Beichun asked. You know about the crossing immortal domain? Di Yujue was surprised. He asked in confusion, how do you know about the crossing immortal domain? Even he had only heard about this place once. He didn't know about the situation there. He didn't expect Di Beichun to know about this place. It was too shocking. I heard about it from the owner of the historical remains. Di Beichun made up a story. He wanted to tell Di Yujue about the Chaos Ring. However, after they brought Mo Yunjue to the abandoned immortal forest, Senior Zhongli told them not to tell anyone about this secret. Although they didn't know why Senior Zhongli told them that, it wasn't good for them to keep bringing people in. After all, the seniors had only accepted the appearance of the few of them. Otherwise, if they had brought in all the familiar faces, the seniors would probably have ignored them. Granny Hua already spent a lot of time preparing a medicinal bath for them every day. It was impossible for them to teach everyone. As such, they could only do so. I see. Listening to Di Beichun's words, Di Yujue did not doubt him. Di Beichun's darkness attribute talent was so outstanding. He knew that the owner of the ruins was definitely not a simple person. It was not strange that he knew about the existence of the crossing immortal domain. Then what did that senior say? Di Beichun pondered and shook his head. Senior didn't mention too much about it. I only heard that the crossing immortal domain is the place where cultivators from the upper realm ascend. However, the crossing immortal domain is only a place for transitional immortals. If you want to truly become an immortal, you have to enter the immortal domain. There is an immortal domain above the crossing immortal domain. Di Yujue was stunned. Obviously, he didn't expect there to be two places that were even higher. Apart from the shock on his face, there was also a trace of complexity. Seems like I'm truly ignorant and inexperienced. I've actually never heard of this immortal realms before. Father, the Shengxian continent is so big. It's normal that there are many places that we don't know about. Chapter 5707. This Shuyu should have gone to the crossing immortal domain. As for how he came back, I don't know. Di Yujue sighed. That place is an existence of a higher level. For him to be able to go there, it shows that his cultivation has surpassed most of the people in the upper realm. At least, my strength is not as good as his. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun seemed to have suddenly understood why Di Yujue was so worried. Since Di Yujue was not Shuyu's opponent, there was probably no one in the family who could be his opponent. If Shuyu stood on the side of the Di family and Xiao family, or even helped them to deal with the Di family, things would become much more troublesome. Such a big family seemed to have a deep foundation, but for a true expert, it was not difficult to deal with them. To catch bandits, one must first catch the leader. As long as the backbone was taken care of, the rest would just be a plate of loose sand. The two of them also felt the threat. If that was really the case, they would have to think of a way. Father, when the boat reaches the bridge head, everything will be fine. Although I don't know why Shu Yu is willing to help them, things may not necessarily turn for the better. Di Beichun consoled, but deep in his eyes, there was a serious and worried look. To him, the Di family was worth protecting with his life. According to what I know, the crossing immortal domain is also a place that the immortal domain looks down on. Only those who perform well in the crossing immortal domain can go to the immortal domain. If this Shu Yu really had the strength, he would not still be in the upper realm. Father, don't worry too much. I believe that the upper realm does not have only one true expert. There will always be a way. Bailey Hongzhuang also consoled. The tall and sturdy man in front of them carried the entire family on his shoulders so that they could have a stable environment. Thinking about it, ever since Shu Yu took Jun Lingxuan and Di Yujue as his disciples, Di Yujue had not been able to eat or sleep in peace. Oh, there's actually such a thing? Di Yujue was a little surprised. He felt as if he had seen a wider world, one that was completely beyond his imagination. Di Baichen nodded. Father, there's no point in thinking about this now. The most important thing is that we have to raise our cultivation as soon as possible. Who knows, maybe we can go to the immortal domain together in the future. You little brat, you really dare to dream. Di Yujue chuckled, but the haze between his eyebrows was blown away by Di Baichen's words. However, what you said makes sense. Who said that we can't go? The atmosphere in the room became relaxed. Di Yujue spoke again. This time, other than telling you this, I have another thing to tell you. An ancient battlefield had suddenly appeared in the desert near Shihan City in the northwest. Currently, it was covered by a dense fog. Although some people had already entered, they still couldn't see the situation clearly. The only thing that can be confirmed is that there are many treasures left behind from ancient times. Therefore, all the major forces have decided to send a younger generation to explore. Di Yujue's gaze swept across Di Baichen and Di Yujue's faces. He said in a deep voice, there are definitely many treasures in the ancient battlefield. However, the danger is also very high. This time, both you and Xiaofeng will be going. In addition, some outstanding cultivators from the family will also be going. Last time, in the Immortal Cloud Mystery Realm, your performance was very good and made our family the biggest beneficiary. Chapter 5708. Father, why would an ancient battlefield suddenly appear in the northwest? Di Baichen was a little surprised. This was also an accidental discovery. Di Yujue shook his head and lamented. Previously, a dense fog suddenly appeared in the northwest, and a large area of fog enveloped the entire desert. Westerhan City felt that this was a little coincidental and sent some soldiers to investigate, but these soldiers never returned. After that, they realized that there was something fishy about this matter, and Westerhan City issued this mission to the Mercenary Association. Because the reward was very generous, many mercenaries went there. It seems that a mercenary accidentally touched the opening of this ancient battlefield, and then the ancient battlefield appeared. A mercenary discovered it? Di Baichen was slightly surprised. That means that many mercenaries have already entered? No. After the ancient battlefield appeared, some experts went to check it out and found that the restriction on it had not completely dissipated. I'm afraid that we can't go in for the time being, but there's an extremely dense energy near the ancient battlefield. Cultivating there will yield twice the results with half the effort. Recently, many cultivators have already taken the lead to head there. Even cultivating there is extremely good. When I said enter, I meant entering the fog. It is said that this fog will cause cultivators to lose their way, so the soldiers sent by Westerhan City did not return. Di Baichen and Li Jinhuang also understood. It seemed that this fog was very strange. This time, Jun Lingxuan and Xiao Sou will also be going. They have improved quite a bit recently, and the two families have spent a lot of resources to nurture them. Their strength cannot be underestimated. You have to be careful. Di Yujue's expression sank slightly, and his brows were tightly knitted together. After experiencing the previous incident, it could be said that they were enemies and their eyes burned with hatred when they met. He did not know what methods Shu Yu would teach the two of them, so he could not help but be worried. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen were clearly not that worried. If Xiao Sou and Li Jinhuang were cultivating with Shu Yu, then they were cultivating with Senior Yu, who was not inferior at all. Although they've improved, we've also improved a lot. Di Baichen looked relaxed. Father, don't worry. They were defeated by us in the past, and they will still be defeated by us in the future. It's good that you're confident, but don't underestimate the enemy, Di Yujue warned. We understand. Since you've already exited your closed-door cultivation, then don't delay and head to Western Desert City as soon as possible. Di Yujue said, your mother has already prepared the things you need to bring this time. She's just waiting for you to come out of seclusion. Let's pack up and set off immediately. By the way, other than the cultivators from the various major factions, the Mercenary Union will also send people in. After all, the Mercenary Union was the one who discovered the ancient battlefield. The top experts of the major forces won't enter, but the Mercenary Union is a place where all kinds of people will be present. There are many unknown factors in this trip, but your life is the most important. Before leaving, Dujue couldn't help but remind him again. This was the concern from father. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen smiled and nodded. We'll definitely return safely. After leaving the room, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but sigh. I didn't expect that we would have to set off so soon after returning. Chapter 5709. Baichun, go and inform everyone to get ready. I will concoct some more of this medicine. Leave some at home and take some with you. Bailey Hongzhuang said. When she came back, she had already looked through the formula of this medicine. It was not difficult to concoct it. However, it was limited in the amount of herbs. If it was only the few of them, the amount would be enough. However, there were more people in the clan, so it was not enough. Di Baichun naturally understood Bailey Hongzhuang's plan. He immediately nodded and said, "Okay, then you go first." The two immediately divided the work. Bailey Hongzhuang quickly returned to her residence. Xiao He and Xiao Bai also followed closely by Bailey Hongzhuang's side. They had experience in this area. Even if they worked together now, their speed was extremely fast. Di Baichun first informed Xiren and the others that he was leaving this time. Then, he went to see Lin Yinqing. When everything was settled, Bailey Hongzhuang also came out of the house. "Wife, is everything ready?" Di Baichun asked with a smile. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. The concoction of the medicine is relatively simple. It is also very fast. As an excellent alchemist, concocting medicine was a piece of cake for her. Lin Yinqing, Di Yujue, Xiao Wanrong, and Di Lin Xian all came. After hearing the conversation between the two, Lin Yinqing could not help but ask, "Baichun, you just said that Hongzhuang is preparing a gift. What is it that is so mysterious?" Hearing this, Di Baichun gave Bailey Hongzhuang a look. Hongzhuang then handed the storage bag to Lin Yinqing. "Mother, this is the medicine I concocted. It will help the cultivator expel the impurities in the body and increase the speed of cultivation." When she said this, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but feel a little guilty. This was completely Granny Hua's potion formula. However, because she could not reveal the existence of Granny Hua, she could only do it herself. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was stunned. Di Lin Xian's eyes were filled with surprise. What kind of medicine is this? It can actually expel the impurities in the body? Not only Di Lin Xian, but Di Yujue and the others also had the same expression. There were very few pills that had this kind of effect, let alone a medicine. After undergoing marrow cleansing, it was extremely difficult to achieve such a feat. No one would have thought that such a medicine would exist. However, Hongzhuang had suddenly taken it out. Everyone was pleasantly surprised. "I found it by chance. I haven't had the time to name it yet." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled helplessly. In short, the effect of this medicine is very good. It's best to cultivate until you're exhausted before taking the medicinal bath. The improvement effect will be even more obvious. Hongzhuang is really amazing. She always surprises us. Lin Yinqing smiled. Xiren and the others who were at the side also smiled. Hongzhuang had always wanted to get the formula of this medicine from Granny Hua. Now that she had gotten her wish, the first thing she did was to benefit her family. "Mother, are my father and the others still in closed-door cultivation?" "I've already sent someone to inform them. However, they've been in closed-door cultivation for a while. Although we don't know the exact situation, we can hear the sound of a breakthrough from time to time. It can be seen that the breakthrough speed is extremely fast. Then I'll go and say goodbye to them before leaving." When Bailey Hongzhuang was on her way to the cultivation room, she met Xiao Sou and the others who were rushing over. Chapter 5710. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. The news came so suddenly. "I'm afraid we'll have to spend a lot of time on this trip. This is a rare opportunity to gain experience. Who knows, We might be able to raise our cultivation by quite a bit. Let's go if we can. Dujue smiled. As a youngster, he naturally had to give it a try. Mu Lingbing was a bit worried. I heard that this place is very dangerous. Many people don't come out after entering. You must be careful. Don't worry. Beichen and Hong Zhuang have also been to many places to gain experience. In my opinion, they have more experience than you. Situ Yin smiled at Mu Lingbing. Hearing Situ Yan's words, Mu Lingbing thought about it and agreed. Just take the upper realm, for example. Hong Zhuang and Beichen had fought their way up. Beichen, you have to take good care of Hong Zhuang, Mu Jintz reminded. Grandmother, don't worry. With me here, I definitely won't let anything happen to Hong Zhuang. At the same time, Wen Jinghui was also instructing Xiren and Shangguan Yingying. To cultivators, gaining experience was a very normal thing. However, as an elder, he couldn't help but worry. After all, there were unavoidable risks in the training grounds. Especially in the upper realm, there were many unknowns. Mother, we're about to set off. You should stay here for a while. This is a medicine I concocted. It's very helpful for cultivation. Soak in it every night. Bailey Hongzhuang handed the medicine to Mu Lingbing. Father, other than cultivating every day, there are many demon beasts in the back mountain. It's very suitable for training. Di Bei Chun explained the best way to use the medicine. He could feel that Lan Yunxiao and the rest cultivation had been rapidly increasing. However, just increasing their cultivation wasn't enough. Fighting was more important. Go in peace. Don't worry about us. We'll be here waiting for you to come back. Lan Yunxiao's face was full of smiles. His handsome face was full of concern, but his eyes, which others couldn't see, were filled with worry. After everything was prepared, everyone set off. Other than them, Bailey Yunyan and many other cultivators from the D family were also traveling with them. In a situation like this where there were forces from all sides, the number of people could still give them an advantage. The one leading the team was still the Great Elder. After the first experience, everyone was already familiar with the route. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others sat on Di Beichen's flying car and followed the first Elder's flying car to the northwest. It's said that the Mercenary Guild will also send people over. I wonder if Huang Futing and the others will be there as well? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. They hadn't seen Huang Futing since he said he was going to train, because they were in a hurry that didn't have time to go to Emperor Cloud City to ask. Based on my judgment of Huang Futing, this opportunity, he shouldn't miss it. Deep Beichen pondered and said, and this matter has been spreading like wildfire. I think they must also know that we will be there. Maybe they are already waiting for us. If that's really the case, then that's not bad. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. This is a very good opportunity to train. If we can get some good fortune, that would be even better. Chapter 5711. Yinju, you've been the Mercenary Union all this time, so you should have some understanding of it. Why don't you tell us about the situation? Di Beichun turned to look at Di Yujue. So far, he had not been to the Mercenary Union, so he did not know much about the situation there. The Mercenary Union in the upper realm is not much different from the lower realm, but the strength of the mercenaries here is stronger. Many idle cultivators gather here and form mercenary teams. I heard that many people from different forces also come here to train, and I met them when I was training. Moreover, the upper realm is vast, and there are many special places, so the missions are divided into different categories. Then did you encounter any trouble when you went there? When Xiren asked. Usually a Xiaobai face like yours should be easily disliked by those burly men, right? Mo Yunjue turned to look at Xiren. Do I look like a Xiaobai face? His cold gaze was as sharp as a knife, and with just a look, the air seemed to be frozen. When Xiren spread out his hands and said resentfully, "Okay, you're not. You brat. Just Yinju's gaze is enough to shut those burly men up." Shangguan Yingying chuckled. However, I can be sure that Yunju's mission in the Mercenary Union will be very smooth. Why? Think about it. Yunju is so handsome, the girls in the Mercenary Union will probably stare at him. Isn't it easy to complete the mission? Shangguan Yingying said matter-of-factly. As soon as she said that, everyone turned to look at Mo Yunjue, but the latter did not say anything. Bailey Hongzhuang gave Shangguan Yingying a look of admiration. She saw through it at a glance. Huang Futing has his own team. I noticed that someone wanted to join his team, but he rejected them. At that time, I thought it was a little strange because that person was not weak, and they just happened to be going on a difficult mission, so they should not have rejected. Later, I found out that they were dark cultivators, and everything became clear. I see. Di Baichen understood. It's inevitable that someone would see through it. Previously, he had been worried about this problem. Once he was targeted, it would be troublesome. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. Not everyone has such good eyesight as Yunjue. There's still very few people who find it. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest arrived at Western Desert City, they discovered that the entire city was bustling with noise and excitement. The huge city was already filled with people, and this scene was comparable to the grand occasion in Piercing Wind City. These people want to enter the ancient battlefield? Xiren was surprised. He didn't know how big the ancient battlefield was. Would these people fill up the entire ancient battlefield? This time, the sudden appearance of the ancient battlefield made it impossible to prevent the news from spreading. Moreover, the number of people in the Mercenary Association was already very large, so it was impossible to control. Although the various major forces have already limited the range of cultivators' strength, you still have to be careful. No one can guarantee that there won't be people who will fish in troubled waters, the Great Elder warned. Everyone nodded. The current situation was far beyond their control. Chapter 57:12. The ancient battlefield appeared in the desert outside Shihan City. The people gathered in the city are mainly new cultivators. Of course, there are also many merchants. With so many people here, the business opportunities are naturally limitless. The Great Elder smiled faintly as he led everyone forward. The information we have is from the past. Different things happen here every day, so before we go, I have to understand the latest situation. If there are no problems, I will bring you all along. Hearing this, everyone nodded. Because Di Baichen and the others were in seclusion and had been on the road for a while, the news the Di family received was from half a month ago. No one knew if anything else had happened in this half a month. Baichen, your family is really big. No matter which city you go to, you have your own people. Xiren looked at the old man who was happily chatting with the Great Elder and couldn't help but sigh. Our family has stood tall for so many years, so we have some relationship with most cities. It's not just us, the other families are the same. Di Xiaofeng smiled. Even if they didn't have any relationship before, they will definitely send people to investigate after this incident. So as long as we come, we will definitely get the latest news. I see. Xiren understood. Although the Cloud Sword sect's influence in the lower realm wasn't small, it was undeniable that they couldn't do this. While the Great Elder was understanding the situation, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were sizing up the situation in the city. All kinds of cultivators were gathered here. There were cultivators entering the city at every moment, and these cultivators often formed teams one after another. The entire city was bustling with noise and excitement. Pill shops, weapon shops, and other cultivation-related shops were all bustling with business. One could even vaguely hear that they were sold out. This is probably the most lively Shihan City has been in these years. Di Xiaofeng smiled and shook his head. In the past, although Shihan City wasn't small, because of its remote location, it wasn't very lively. Every time this small world appears, it can always bring about a city. Bailey Yunyan smiled faintly. They had obviously heard of this situation many times. Look, that person looks familiar. Is he from the Xiao clan? Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze locked onto a man in front of her. She remembered seeing him in the Piercing Wind City before. Everyone followed Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze. The man was also sizing up Bailey Hongzhuang. Only when he felt everyone's gaze did he turn his head and stop watching. That's right. This person is from the Xiao clan, Di Baichen affirmed. We came late this time. I believe that the Jun family and the Xiao family have already arrived. Di Xiaofeng spread out his hands, but his expression was very calm. Soon, you will see most of the people you met in the immortal cloud mystic realm. Morong Jing, Chun Feng, and Jiang Wenyin should have arrived as well, right? A faint smile appeared on his chiseled face. It was like the sun in March, warm and bright. Di Xiaofeng nodded. They won't miss such an opportunity. Chapter 57:13. Look, isn't that the Saint of Light? Among the crowd, a cultivator's gaze locked onto Bailey Hongzhuang. After taking a closer look, he could not help but cry out in surprise. As soon as he said that, he immediately attracted the attention of many cultivators. Everyone turned their heads, and a look of pleasant surprise appeared on their faces. That's the D family's team. That's right, that's the Saint of Light. If it weren't for the incident in Western Desert City, I'm afraid I wouldn't have had the chance to see the real Saint of Light. Many curious and pleasantly surprised gazes landed on Bailey Hongzhuang. The incident of the Sacred Assembly of Light had already spread throughout the entire upper realm several months ago. As for the portrait of the Saint of Light, it had also spread to every branch of the Sacred Assembly of Light. Everyone had long heard that the Saint of Light was as beautiful as a fairy. When they saw the portrait, they already had such a feeling. It was only when they saw her in person that they were shocked. In a short time, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were surrounded by many cultivators. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others did not expect such a situation to occur. They were all stunned and could not help but smile. My wife, your reputation is now much greater than mine. Your husband will have to rely on you in the future. Di Beichen chuckled. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Di Beichen. I'll think about it. The Di family came a little late this time. The Xiao family and the Jun family came a while ago. It looks like there's going to be a good show to watch. Isn't that so? I think that with the appearance of the ancient battlefield this time, the relationship between the three great forces might change again. The complicated relationship between the three great families had long been known to everyone, especially after Bailey Hongzhuang took away the position of the Saint of Light. This conflict could be said to have risen to the peak. There had been no news for several months, and it was likely that something was going to happen again. The Great Elder was originally chatting with his family in Western Desert City when he suddenly realized that his team was almost surrounded by a group of cultivators. He immediately walked over. After discovering that everyone was interested in Bailey Hongzhuang's situation, he felt relieved and began to update everyone on the recent situation. There should still be some time before the ancient battlefield's restriction dissipates completely. Recently, the essence force that is spreading out is getting denser and denser. The surrounding cultivators have all come here because of its reputation. This is an excellent opportunity to raise their cultivation level. Almost all the cultivators from the major forces have arrived. Let's set off now. Hearing this, everyone nodded and immediately followed behind the first elder as they walked quickly towards the desert. It is said that the yuan qi emitted from the ancient battlefield far exceeds the yuan qi that one normally cultivates. Not only is it denser, but it also contains a unique law of heaven and earth. In this short period of time, many cultivators have already made breakthroughs, so all of you must also grasp this opportunity and work hard to improve your own cultivation, the Great Elder advised. Everyone looked at each other and became even more interested in this. I wonder what kind of heaven and earth yuan qi it is to have such a good effect. Bailey Hongzhuang pondered and said, It's rare to have such a good opportunity. Why didn't Father and the others come together? This kind of environment was not only beneficial to them, but also to all the cultivators. Chapter 57:14. I don't think everyone will turn a blind eye to such a good opportunity. Mo Yunjue said slowly. The Great Elder smiled faintly and said nothing. Everyone walked in the desert. Not long after, everyone found that a large number of cultivators appeared in front of them. They were densely packed and looked particularly conspicuous in this endless desert. In addition, everyone found that the desert, which was originally very clear, was shrouded in a layer of white mist, making the situation in front hazy and unclear. Noticing this scene, everyone knew that this was the place where the ancient battlefield appeared. With the appearance of Bailey Hongzhuang and her party, they immediately attracted a lot of people's attention. The D family's people are finally here. Their speed is really slow this time. It's most likely that Di Beichen or Di Xiaofeng are in close cultivation, so they are late. Everyone looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and her party. Even if they didn't know the specific situation, they could guess it. Bailey Hongzhuang and others just casually glanced around and found many familiar forces. There were many tents. As far as the eye could see, the endless tents were lined up in a straight line. There was a flag hanging on these tents with the names of the major forces written on it. With a casual glance, Bailey Hongzhuang noticed the flags of the Xiao family and the Jun family, which were very close to the center. There's our family's flag there. Di Xiaofeng pointed to a flag not far from the Xiao family and said. Hearing this, everyone turned their eyes and found the Di family's flag fluttering in the wind. Great Elder, we've only just arrived, but you've already prepared everything? Di Beichen was a little surprised. He was worried that he would not be able to find a good position if he came late. Now it seemed that he was worried for nothing. The family master has sent people to occupy the position as soon as he heard the news. The great elder smiled and said, Look, the Lin family's team has also arrived. As soon as the great elder's voice fell, Lin Yi's figure had already appeared in everyone's sight. Second cousin, you're so late. Lin Yi smiled mischievously and got close to Bailey Hongduang, second cousin-in-law. Did something happen that delayed you? Previously, we were in seclusion and did not know about the ancient battlefield. Father was worried that it would affect our cultivation and did not disturb us. After we found out, we rushed over immediately. I see. Lin Yi understood. The vitality here is very rich. It's really suitable for cultivation. I broke through 2 days ago. You can't waste this good opportunity. With that said, Lin Yi held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and walked forward. Her pretty face was full of sunshine. Di Xiaofeng looked at the smiling Lin Yi and quietly breathed a sigh of relief. As sharp as he was, he could still feel the change in Lin Yi's expression. Di Beichun patted Di Xiaofeng's shoulder. He is much better now. Don't worry. He also paid attention to Lin Yi's expression. In fact, since Lin Yi appeared, her eyes did not stay on Di Xiaofeng for a moment. It seemed that she deliberately did not look at him. But in any case, she was getting better. After so many years of love, it would not completely dissipate in a short time. What's more, there was still awkwardness now. This would take time to gradually dilute. Chapter 57:15. Lin Xianxian and Lin Taxing also smiled after seeing Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. We have been wondering why you haven't come yet. You have sharp eyes. Lin Xianxian smiled. Lin Yi raised her eyebrows. Of course, I saw my second cousin-in-law as soon as I turned my head. Bailey Hongzhuang had already felt the rich aura of heaven and earth as soon as she got close. In addition to being richer, this aura also had an unknown special aura. Perhaps this was the so-called rules of heaven and earth, which gave people an inexplicable feeling. Their thoughts seemed to be unprecedentedly clear. Even just being in this environment gave people a completely different feeling of comfort. Demon summoning scripture began to circulate unconsciously, absorbing the rich aura. All the cells in her body relaxed and greedily absorbed the aura. She could clearly feel that the aura in her body was constantly filling up. Cultivating in this environment was not only twice the result with half the effort, but the effect might be 3 times, 4 times, or even more. Not only Bailey Hongzhuang, but Di Beichen and the others also felt the change immediately. Their faces were filled with amazement. Such pure and rich aura, we can't even touch it on normal days. Di Xiaofeng was surprised. This aura can be directly absorbed. It's a good opportunity to improve. Judging from this aura, the ancient battlefield is an amazing place. The Mercenary Union has found a good opportunity this time. Mo Yunjua's expression was still cold, and there was no change on his cold face. Lin Taxing nodded and motioned everyone to look not far away. Look, those are the people from the Mercenary Union. The number is the most amazing. Looking in the direction Lin Taxing pointed, everyone found that the Mercenary Union's flag was flying in the distance. Its range was almost equal to all the other forces. The number of people from a Mercenary Union is already amazing. Plus, They were the first to discover it this time, so they have the advantage. In my opinion, the cultivators from the Mercenary Union are only a part of them. There are more cultivators on the way. In this regard, everyone was not surprised at all. The Mercenary Union could be said to have the largest number of people among all the organizations. Their management was also very lax. Even the cultivators in the organization were mostly mercenaries. I'm afraid it will be very lively when we enter the ancient battlefield this time, Bailey Hongzhuang said with a faint smile. A heavy look flashed across Lin Taxing's eyes. Actually, I can feel that the ancient battlefield this time is very different. It's much more powerful than the secret realms we've encountered before. Just the Yuanqi alone has already far exceeded the past. Furthermore, I heard from some elders that the scale of this ancient battlefield is far beyond our imagination. As for what the situation inside is like, no one can say for sure, but the risk is probably unprecedented. Looking at Lin Taxing's solemn expression, everyone's heart sank. The former must have heard a lot of news. No matter what, this is an abandoned ancient battlefield. With so many of us going in, there shouldn't be too much of a problem, Di Xiaofeng said slowly. The solemn expression on his face didn't disappear. Have you heard that Xiao Sou and Jun Lingxuan have acknowledged Xu Yu as their master? Lin Qianqian suddenly asked. Chapter 57:16. I've already met Xiao Sou and Jun Lingxuan previously. This Xu Yu is indeed not simple. It's just that I haven't seen them for a while, but their cultivation progress is astonishing. Lin Qianqian's face sank. According to my judgment, they should have reached Nebula Stage 9. With Senior Xu Yu as their master, the two of them are even more arrogant than before. Their arrogance is soaring as if nothing happened. Nebula Stage 9? Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. They had been cultivating with all their might, without slacking off. With Grandma Hua's medicinal bath, they had reached Nebula Stage 9. She didn't expect that Xiao Sou and Jun Lingxuan's cultivation had also risen to such a level. It seemed like this Xu Yu was indeed quite capable. Lin Qianqian nodded. That's right. Although I don't know why Senior Xu Yu accepted them as disciples. After this incident, I no longer have the same respect for Senior Xu Yu as before. Now that we're outside, they might have some misgivings. However, once we enter the ancient battlefield, they will definitely think of ways to deal with you. You have to be on your guard. Feeling Lin Qianqian's concern, Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze softened. She smiled faintly. Qianqian, thank you. We understand. Di Beichen, your speed this time is too slow. Speak of the devil. Just as everyone was talking about Jun Lingxuan, they discovered that Jun Lingxuan and Xiao Sou were following behind an old man. Before they even arrived, Jun Lingxuan's teasing voice could already be heard. Di Beichen turned his head. He didn't pay too much attention to Jun Lingxuan and Xiao Sou. Instead, his gaze locked onto the old man in front of them. Although it was his first time seeing him, he was certain that this person was the famous Xu Yu. A tyrannical aura was emitted from his body. It inexplicably gave people an indescribable sense of oppression. This kind of power simply didn't allow them to probe his cultivation. When their spiritual power got close, it would be suppressed. In other words, the other party's cultivation was much higher than theirs. As expected of a cultivator who has been to the crossing immortal domain. His cultivation is not to be underestimated, Bailey Hongzhuang said in a low voice. His cultivation should still be inferior to Senior Yu's. It's just that Senior Yu usually restrains his aura, so we can't sense it. Di Beichen looked at Xu Yu, who was slowly walking towards him. He was constantly making judgments in his heart. Didn't we come a little late to give you a chance? Di Beichen raised his face. His handsome face looked even more charming under the sunlight. A cold glint flashed across Jun Lingxuan's eyes. You're still as sharp-tongued as ever. You still like to be defeated, Di Beichen retorted indifferently. Xiao Sou's gaze was fixed on Bailey Hongzhuang. Now, whenever she saw Bailey Hongzhuang, she would feel uncomfortable. Only by making Bailey Hongzhuang disappear from this world would she be able to truly feel at ease. Bailey Hongzhuang, let's see who's stronger in this ancient battlefield, Xiao Sou said coldly. Recently, her cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds. She believed that Bailey Hongzhuang was no match for her. I'll accompany you to the end. Shu Yu sized up Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun without saying a word. At the same time, the great elder quietly stood beside Bailey Hongzhuang and Bailey Hongzhuang with a look of fear. After looking at them for a while, Shu Yu said indifferently, "Two pretty good young people." Chapter 57:17. It wasn't until Shu Yu left that first elder let out a sigh of relief, and his tense body also relaxed. "First elder, are you all right?" Di Xiaofeng asked with concern. First elder waved his hand. "This Shu Yu is very strong. If he made a move, I wouldn't be able to resist. Fortunately, he didn't seem to have that intention. I really don't know what methods the Xiao and Jun family used to recruit him. This situation is really troublesome." Everyone looked at each other with complicated expressions. This Shu Yu's appearance was tantamount to giving the Di family a big problem. "Master, why did you praise them just now?" Xiao Sou couldn't help but ask after following Shu Yu back to the family's residence. She had always seen Bailey Hongzhuang as a thorn in her side. Hearing her master praise Bailey Hongzhuang in front of her, she was really unhappy to the extreme. Shu Yu glanced at Xiao Sou and said, "These two juniors aren't simple. It's not strange that you lost to them." "Why?" Jun Lingxuan was also a little confused, but he wasn't as dissatisfied as Xiao Sou. Ever since he acknowledged Shu Yu as his master, he understood how powerful his master was. He believed that his master must have his reasons for saying this. "I've already heard about the experiences of Di Beichun and Bailey Hongzhuang. They didn't rely on the Di family to come to the upper realm, but rather fought their way up from the lower realm. You've never been to the lower realm, but you've always looked down on it. But have you ever thought about how difficult it was for these two youngsters to come to the upper realm with their own strength in that environment?" Shu Yu took 2 steps forward, turned around, and continued. "I just looked at them. They have a kind of tenacity that doesn't fear danger and a kind of determination that doesn't give up until they reach their goal. For cultivators, these 2 characteristics are very important. However, the 2 of you obviously can't compare to them in this aspect." Hearing Shu Yu's words, Jun Lingxuan and Xiao Sou both fell into silence. Although they were not convinced that they could not compare to others, they also understood that what Shu Yu said was reasonable. They had heard the same words from their father before, so they had to admit it. Shu Yu noticed their expressions and nodded. "Not bad. You guys didn't rush to refute this time. Then, Master, are we no match for them?" "That's not it." Shu Yu shook her head. "Know thyself and know thy enemy, and you will never be defeated. You must first know where you are inferior to others, and then improve yourself. What I'm afraid of is your arrogance. As long as you listen to my words and work hard, defeating them won't be difficult." Only then did Jun Lingxuan let out a sigh of relief, revealing a joyful smile. "Master, we will definitely work hard. Actually, the gap between you guys has already shrunk. You guys are Nebula Stage 9, and they are also Nebula Stage 9. The gap isn't that big. They actually broke through to Nebula Stage 9. Xiao Sou was stunned. During this period of time, they had trained so hard to break through to Nebula Stage 9. Originally, they thought that they would be able to crush the other party, but they didn't expect that the other party had also broken through to the same realm. This feeling made her very unhappy. Chapter 57:18. Hearing Shu Yu's words, Jun Lingxuan and Xiao Sou fell silent. Actually, this was something that they were unwilling to think about. Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiao Yuer's improvement after coming to the upper realm was indeed astonishing. Back then, the difference in strength between them was not small. However, in just a few years, Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiao Yu had not only caught up to them, they had even surpassed their cultivation. How could they, who had always been praised as geniuses, accept this? Most importantly, back in the Divine Cloud's secret realm, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun's taboo techniques were too shocking. Therefore, when they found out that they were both Nebula Rank 9 cultivators, their confidence in winning had already begun to waver. Under the same cultivation, they were very clear that they were no match for them. Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang's methods were enough to let them crush all cultivators of the same level. Although they did not think that they were weak, they still had some understanding in their hearts at this time. Shu Yu looked at Jun Lingxuan and Xiao Yu, who had fallen silent. She did not want to hurt her two disciples too much, so she immediately said, "As cultivators, most of us are extremely hard-working. Aren't you guys working hard too? Don't take what happened in the past to heart. The past is the past. Now that you are my disciples, I will definitely make you the most outstanding young people. Do you understand?" Jun Lingxuan and Xiao Sou's spirits were lifted. Then, a strong sense of confidence appeared on their faces. Yes, Master. Previously, they had indeed lost to Di Beichen and Xiao Yu. However, now that they had the #1 expert Shu Yu as their master, Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiao Yu obviously did not have such an opportunity. Therefore, this was their trump card to turn defeat into victory. Shu Yu nodded in satisfaction. Previously, I said so much because I hope that you guys will not be arrogant and complacent. Of course, there is no need to belittle yourselves. Accurately recognizing your own strength is the most important thing. The vitality that overflows from this ancient battlefield is the vitality of heaven and earth. It is the source of cultivation energy. Cultivating here will help you greatly improve your cultivation. You must grasp this opportunity and cultivate well. Before you have enough confidence to defeat your opponent, don't cause any trouble for the time being. Jun Lingxuan and Xiao Yu cupped their hands, their expressions serious and strict. Master, thank you for your teachings. We will definitely remember it in our hearts and diligently cultivate. We will not cause any trouble. Go. Shu Yu's face, Xiao Yu and Xiao Yu Xiao Yu and Xiao Yu He was not very willing. After all, the conflict between these two little guys and Di Beichen could be said to be well known by everyone. Shu Yu Shu Yu and Xiao Shu. Now, it seemed that this was indeed the case. As for Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang, they were indeed good seedlings. However, since they were opponents, they could only become stepping stones. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen did not immediately start cultivating like everyone else when they arrived at the ancient battlefield. Instead, they looked towards the Mercenary Association's encampment. After a round of investigation, they saw a familiar figure in the Mercenary Association's team. Chapter 5719. When he heard that the Xiao family's team had arrived, he immediately rushed out to take a look. As expected, he saw Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang. Huang Futing is really here. Di Beichen's lips curled into a smile, and his heart relaxed. At least now that he saw Huang Futing, it proved that they had been doing well in the Mercenary Guild and had not been discovered. I told you, with their abilities, there won't be any problems. Bailey Hongzhuang looked relaxed. This is good too. After entering the ancient battlefield, we will have a helping hand that others don't know about. Huang Futing was originally thinking about whether to get close to Di Beichen, but he saw the latter give him a look. He immediately stopped and understood Di Beichen's meaning. Now that all the major forces were gathered here, it might be best to pretend that they didn't know each other. The cultivators standing beside Huang Futing were also happy when they saw Di Beichen, but they were stopped by Huang Futing. Let's not expose our identities. It won't be too late to meet the young master after entering the ancient battlefield. Hearing this, everyone's expression froze, and they all understood. It's easy for us to be noticed in the Mercenary Guild. If everyone knows about our relationship with the young master, it will be troublesome if more things are involved. Brother Huangfu, thank goodness you stopped us. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. They had indeed thought too simply. This is also the young master's intention. Huang Futing smiled faintly. Now is a once-in-a-lifetime cultivation opportunity. Normally, it would be difficult for us to obtain cultivation resources. Now that we have such an opportunity, everyone has to grasp it and strive to raise their cultivation as soon as possible. Only then can we carry out our grand plan earlier. As soon as these words came out, everyone's expression was refreshed. Thinking about the Dark Sacred Assembly, Everyone felt as if they had been injected with chicken blood and were full of energy. In the past, they had been aimless and could not see the future and hope. Now, a bright path had appeared in front of them. Although the surroundings were full of thorns and obstacles, they were full of confidence. At the very least, they now had a goal to strive for, instead of living aimlessly like a walking corpse. I see a lot of familiar faces. It seems like they've all come here. Bailey Hongzhuang pretended to be indifferent as she quietly observed Huang Futing's surroundings. Many of the people she had seen in Emperor Cloud City appeared around Huang Futing. It's a rare opportunity. They won't miss it. Di Baichen smiled. Now we can rest assured. Let's go into the tent and cultivate. Jun Lingxuan and Xiao Sou had both broken through to Nebula Stage 9. It could be seen that Shu Yu indeed had some ability. They might be thinking about how to deal with us. We have to raise our cultivation as soon as possible and not give them any chance to take advantage of us. His deep and wise eyes were dignified. Although Di Baichen was very disdainful of Junling's son, it was undeniable that this person was an outstanding existence among the younger generation. What's more, with Shu Yu's guidance, Jun Lingxuan's recent cultivation speed was extremely fast. He had never looked down on anyone. A scholar who had been away for 3 days should be looked at with new eyes. They hadn't seen each other for such a long time. Jun Lingxuan had suffered such a huge blow that he might have put away his previous arrogance. All of this was very likely, and he could not lose. Chapter 5720. Shu Yu's appearance was no different from a huge mountain pressing down on everyone's hearts. Everyone was worried that this person's appearance would bring about changes. Not only Di Baichen, but also Di Yujue could feel Di Yujue's worry when he first talked to Di Yujue. Bailey Hongzhuang knew Di Baichen very well. Although he never revealed anything on the surface, it was obvious that he had remembered everything in his heart. To him, there was no doubt about the importance of his family. He did not want any changes that could threaten his family's safety, so he would definitely think of a way to solve all of this. However, Shu Yu's strength was just too strong. At least for now, they were no match for him at all. Regarding this, she felt very helpless. Even if they had thought of a way, at least for now, there was no effective way. When the two of them returned to the tent, when Xiren and the rest opened their eyes, Hongzhuang, the vitality here is the vitality of heaven and earth. It is the source of energy that cultivators need. It is purer and more condensed than the vitality that we normally absorb. We must grab this good opportunity to absorb more vitality to strengthen our cultivation. Ling Er's voice was filled with surprise. Vitality of heaven and earth. Bailey Hongzhuang was surprised. It was her first time hearing this term. Ling nodded slightly. The vitality of heaven and earth is the purest form of vitality. It is very suitable for cultivators. The vitality that we normally absorb is derived from the vitality of heaven and earth. However, regardless of purity or concentration, it cannot be compared to the vitality of heaven and earth. The upper realm basically does not have the vitality of heaven and earth. This is a great supplement for cultivators. This also means that this ancient battlefield is probably a very strong existence. Hearing Ling Er's words, everyone had a higher opinion of this ancient battlefield. Then wouldn't this ancient battlefield be too strong? It's not a place that we can enter at all. Shangguan Yingying asked worriedly. Ling shook her head. This is an abandoned ancient battlefield. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be too much of a problem. However, we still have to be careful when we enter. Since this is a rare opportunity, let's not waste any more time and cultivate. Bailey Hongzhuang stopped the topic. No matter how dangerous the ancient battlefield was, since they were already here, they would not give up the opportunity to enter. Now that they were all Nebula Stage 9, they clearly remembered Granny Hua's warning. The most important thing now was to suppress his cultivation level. The more essence force he accumulated, the stronger his strength would become after breaking through. If it was any other day, this process would definitely be extremely long. But now, with the Heaven and Earth Yuan Qi, this process could be greatly shortened. It was truly a heaven-sent opportunity. As soon as Bailey Hongzhuang finished speaking, everyone stopped talking and went into closed-door cultivation. Not only the D family, but almost everyone who came was unwilling to give up such a good opportunity to cultivate. Every second wasted was a second wasted. Therefore, other than a few cultivators who had just arrived, everyone immediately went into closed-door cultivation after settling down. After the great elder settled everyone down, he did not give up on this great opportunity. His cultivation level had not increased for a long time. Perhaps he could take advantage of this opportunity to increase it. Chapter 57:21. This news caused the leaders of the various forces to become restless. Although their cultivation levels were high, it was also because of this that it was even more difficult for them to break through. Where else could they find such a good opportunity on a normal day? Instantly, many of the leaders of the forces disguised themselves and arrived near the ancient battlefield. After the first person appeared, many more people appeared one after another. Although they had disguised themselves, they were still recognized. However, no one exposed them. After all, everyone had a tacit understanding of their purpose of coming here. Bailey Hongzhuang concocted some medicine, and everyone simply soaked in the medicinal bath to cultivate. On one side was the heaven and earth yuan qi, and on the other side was the pure medicinal power. Under the influence of these two factors, everyone improved tremendously every day. However, even if they felt the barrier to breaking through, no one tried to break through. Instead, they suppressed it. This was the time to accumulate. Only by accumulating more would one be able to reap greater rewards. Compared to the various forces, the number of breakthroughs in the Mercenary Guild's encampment was higher every day. Cultivators of various cultivation levels gathered in the Mercenary Guild. Some of them even broke through 3 levels in a short period of time. Such a harvest was truly a pleasant surprise. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest were engrossed in their cultivation. During this process, they naturally noticed the movements of the other cultivators. However, among the cultivators they were familiar with, they had not heard of anyone breaking through to the Radiant Moon Realm. I wonder if the other cultivators also know to suppress their breakthroughs. Bailey Yin Che was puzzled when he realized that no one had broken through to the Radiant Moon Realm after such a long time. Perhaps, Mo Yunjua pondered. The Radiant Moon Realm is more difficult to break through than the other realms. Others don't know, but I believe that Xiao Sou and Jun Lingxuan definitely know. Bailey Hongzhuang looked certain. Since Xu Yu went to the crossing immortal territory, the cultivators he met were naturally extremely powerful. I'm afraid he already knew about this. Di Baichen nodded slightly. He agreed with Bailey Hongzhuang's opinion. I asked my father before. Perhaps the immortal territory and the upper realm have not been in contact for a long time. So many people in the upper realm are not clear about this. My father doesn't know about this. He just broke through to the Radiant Moon Realm as usual. Beichun, where's the immortal territory you're talking about? Di Xiaofeng looked at Beichun in confusion. Why did he feel that Beichin and the rest seemed to know many things he did not know? It's a higher existence. Di Beichun smiled faintly. However, we are not very clear about that place. We only know that Shu Yu has been to the crossing immortal domain, so she knows more about cultivation than us. Di Xiaofeng sighed. Originally, the Xiao family and the Jun family were no longer a threat to us, but since this person appeared, things have become a lot more troublesome. I wonder why Shu Yu would help them. However, no matter what, we cannot allow him to affect the D clan. Di Beichen's Di Xiaofeng. He would not let go of anyone who affected his family, even if the opponent was far more powerful than they imagined. Di Xiaofeng looked at Di Beichen quietly. Suddenly, his lips curled into a dazzling smile. Chapter 57:22. Hearing the word immortal, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other and laughed involuntarily. Shu Yu had only gone to the immortal domain and had yet to become a cultivator of the immortal domain. She was indeed not an immortal. In the blink of an eye, 2 months had passed. In these 2 months, the number of cultivators that gathered in Western Desert City could be said to have increased. Previously, when Bailey Hongzhuang and the others arrived, the entrance of the ancient battlefield was already filled with cultivators. Now, the number of cultivators was constantly increasing. Even the edge of the desert was surrounded by cultivators. Although the further back one's position was, the weaker the concentration of origin chi would be, it was still better than the usual cultivation environment. Therefore, everyone still flocked to this place and enjoyed it. Master, I feel the opportunity to break through again. After Jun Lingxuan felt the barrier to breaking through to the Radiant Moon Realm, he couldn't help but be pleasantly surprised. Until now, he hadn't felt any other familiar peers breaking through to the Radiant Moon Realm. If he could break through first, he would definitely be in the limelight. On this point, he could directly suppress Di Beichen and Di Xiaofeng. Shu Yu looked at Jun Lingxuan's happy appearance and shook her head. Don't be in a hurry to break through for now. Accumulate more. After breaking through, you'll be even stronger. Hearing this, Jun Lingxuan frowned. Master, I already felt the opportunity to break through a while ago. You told me to accumulate, so I've been accumulating. Now that I've felt it for the second time, can I break through? Ling Sun, don't be anxious about breaking through. Accumulating more is good for you. Master won't lie to you. Shu Yu's expression was indifferent, as if she didn't see Jun Lingxuan's anxiousness. Master, I heard that Nangong Yuqing is already at Nebula Rank 9. If he breaks through to the Radiant Moon Realm first, then Ling Sun's limelight will be stolen. What's more, Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang's cultivation talent isn't weak. Who knows when they might break through first? Xiao Shou couldn't help but say. During this period of time, they've been suppressed by Di Beichen in every way, and all the limelight had been stolen by them. She only hoped to turn the tables around as soon as possible. If they break through, then let them break through. What's the problem? Shu Yu's expression was mild. Do you want temporary glory or long-term benefits? I've already told you before that you can't be too hasty in everything. The best outcome is when the conditions are right. In short, my opinion is not to break through, but to accumulate more. If you don't listen, I won't stop you. Looking at Shu Yu's back, Xiao Shou and Jun Lingxuan looked at each other helplessly. I really don't understand. It's not easy to get this kind of opportunity. Why does Master always have such an attitude? Jun Lingxuan sighed. He used to be so glorious, but he had already fallen many times because of Di Beichen. This time, he really wanted to turn the tables, but he couldn't offend his master. I see that Di Beichen and the others haven't broken through. Ling Sun, don't be too anxious. Xiao Shou comforted. Jun Lingxuan nodded slightly. We've already lost for so long. This time, we can't lose again. We definitely won't lose. This is the second time you've sensed the opportunity to break through. Di Beichen and the others haven't broken through yet. It's clear that they can't compare to you. Chapter 5723. When Bailey Hongzhuang sensed the opportunity to break through, she immediately stopped cultivating. If she continued, she wouldn't be able to control the energy in her body and break through the barrier. Noticing Bailey Hongzhuang's movements, Di Beichen chuckled. About to break through? Yes. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. I suddenly understand what Zhongli Mu said earlier. He broke through unknowingly while sleeping, so he really can't suppress it. Zhongli Mu had previously told everyone about his breakthrough. Because Zhongli Mu had asked him to suppress it, he had been suppressing it. However, as he accumulated more and more energy, the opportunity to break through kept appearing. Even the slightest bit of carelessness could lead to a breakthrough. Under such circumstances, he didn't even dare to sleep, afraid that he would break through. Until one day, because he hadn't slept for a long time, he was too sleepy and broke through after taking a nap. That's why Zhongli Mu's strength is so abnormal. Xiren shook his head. Their confidence was nothing in front of Zhongli Mu. Just as everyone was talking, the aura of a breakthrough suddenly came. Everyone walked out of their tents after sensing the aura. They could sense that it came from an aristocratic family's tent, but they didn't know which one it was. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others walked out of their tents, they saw the great elder standing outside and looking in the direction of the aura. Great Elder, who broke through. This aura come from the Nangong family. It should be Nangong Yuqing breaking through to the radiant moon realm. The Great Elder looked into the distance and sighed. So it's Nangong Yuqing. Deep Beichen didn't find it strange. After all, Nangong Yuqing wasn't weak. Back then, when he pursued Xiao Sou, he had many conflicts with them. However, ever since he brought Nangong Xiaolong back, they hadn't heard any news about him. This guy actually broke through to the radiant moon realm. It seems that his progress isn't small. Mo Yunjue said indifferently. Just as they were talking, Jun Lingxuan and Xiao Sou came out of their tents. Nangong Yuqing really broke through. Jun Lingxuan sighed. In the end, he wasn't the first to break through. Xiao Sou comforted him. Lingxuan, it's good that we understand. I believe that Master has his reasons. I hope so. Junling's son turned his head and found that Di Bei Chun and the others were looking at him. He immediately restrained the sadness on his face and restored his usual arrogance. Di Bei Chun, do you feel envious to see Nangong Yuqing have you broken through? Your cultivation slow. I think you're the one who's be disappointed. Di Bei Chun smiled. In any case, my cultivation's already lagging behind, so it doesn't matter. Besides, strength and cultivation aren't completely proportional. Jun Lingxuan snorted. You're just talking big. We'll see who's the real deal when we enter the ancient battlefield. I hope you won't lose your life before you see us. Di Beichun raised his eyebrows and walked into the tent. The Nangong family's cultivators were undoubtedly full of glory. Their young master was the first to break through and stole the limelight from the other family's younger generation. Chapter 5724. Father and the rest didn't come for such a good opportunity. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the Great Elder. It was a pity to miss such a good opportunity. Looking at the look of pity on Bailey Hongzhuang's face, the Great Elder smiled and said, Actually, the Master and the rest are already here. As soon as these words came out, everyone was stunned. Their eyes flashed with a strong sense of surprise. Is that true? Of course it's true. Then why didn't we see them? The Great Elder sighed. All the major forces have agreed that the younger generation will explore the ancient battlefield. It's naturally inappropriate for the elders to come here. However, many leaders of the forces have come, but they have disguised themselves and did not enter the base of their respective families. The current situation is considered to be unspoken. Hearing that, everyone finally understood. They had not expected the leaders of the forces to be so interesting. They had formed such an interesting unwritten rule in such a short period of time. Great Elder, it's a pity to miss such a good opportunity. Why didn't the Master and the rest go in? When Xiren asked curiously. If the Master had gone in, he would have reaped a greater harvest than them. Looking at the confused crowd, the Great Elder smiled and explained, if the Master went in, he would have reaped a greater harvest, but the risk would be great as well. Moreover, the younger generation has to be given space to grow. Only with enough experience and opportunities can they become stronger. Actually, the Master and the rest had gone through this in the past. I was too naive, Yi Zichen said, when Xiren was enlightened. He had only thought about the benefits and had not considered anything else. The younger generation was an extremely precious resource for the family. However, if anything happened to the Master, it would be a huge blow to the family. Thinking about it, all the major forces have been doing this for the past few years. The restriction is much fainter than before. I believe it won't be long before it completely disappears. The Great Elder reminded everyone. Everyone, I estimate that it will take about 7 days. Continue to cultivate first. When it's about time, I'll inform you. Everyone nodded. Once they entered the ancient battlefield, it would be the time for the younger generation of the major forces to compete. Before entering, even if one's cultivation increased by a little, their chances of survival would increase by a little. With that, the first elder walked out of the tent with a helpless look on his face. Nangong Yuqing had already broken through to the radiant moon realm, but the young master and the great young master had not. If they entered the ancient battlefield, they would be at a disadvantage. The great young master and Nangong Yuqing had formed a grudge during the previous trip to the immortal Cloud Realm. If they met in the ancient battlefield, they would inevitably fight. He was very clear about the difference between the Nebula tier and the Radiant Moon tier. It might seem like it was only one level, but the difference between the two was far more than just one level. I hope he can make a breakthrough in 7 days. The Great Elder prayed. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others didn't know what the Great Elder was thinking. Right now, no one was planning to break through. Their idea was to be like Zhongli Mu and break through naturally. It would be more beneficial for them in the future. Everyone could feel that the restriction was about to disappear. This kind of cultivation opportunity would most likely not appear again in the future. Therefore, in the remaining few days, everyone cultivated in silence for fear of delaying the advancement of their cultivation. Chapter 5725. Not because of anything else, but because of the noisy discussion coming from outside. It seems that the seal is about to dissipate, Di Beichan said in a low voice. Everyone walked out of the tent and looked at the entrance. The fog was as hazy as before, blocking everyone's vision. They couldn't see the front with their naked eyes. They knew that the seal was about to dissipate because of their mental strength. The power that had been lingering at the entrance had weakened a lot and was faintly dissipating. When the Great Elder saw that everyone had come out, he said, "Young Master, I'm afraid that the seal will dissipate in another 4 hours. You have to be prepared. We'll be going in soon." Di Beichan nodded slightly. His chiseled face was solemn and serious. "Great Elder, don't worry. We're already prepared and can set off at any time." Perhaps it was because they were about to enter the ancient battlefield. Many cultivators couldn't cultivate in peace. The surroundings became noisy and lively. Xiaofeng. Murong Jing's figure appeared in front of everyone. "I knew that you were cultivating, so I didn't disturb you. We'll be entering the ancient battlefield soon, and we'll have to fight side by side again." Seeing Murong Jing, Di Xiaofeng smiled heartily and warmly. "You and I have fought side by side since we were young. We can't underestimate the ancient battlefield this time. Although the situation isn't clear, everyone is sure that the danger level inside is higher than what we've experienced before. So, we have to be careful when we enter. We're all people who cherish our lives. We don't know what's going to happen after we enter. It's safer for us to meet up as soon as possible." Di Xiaofeng nodded. There were so many rumors before they even entered. It was clear how dangerous it was. In his opinion, the treasure was secondary. Protecting his life was the most important. Murong Jing was relieved when he saw that Di Xiaofeng understood the situation. He didn't stay any longer. All the major forces had already kept their tents and were waiting to enter the ancient battlefield later. "Young Master, Great Master, the Patriarch said that everything else isn't important as long as you return safely. Moreover, Xiao Sou and Jun Lingxuan probably learned some tricks from Shuyu. The Patriarch said that you shouldn't underestimate the enemy." The Great Elder's expression was serious, but his eyes were filled with worry. Now that they were about to enter, and none of the young masters and the others had broken through to the Radiant Moon realm, he could not help but feel worried. "We understand." Di Beichan nodded and turned his gaze slightly. However, he found that among the troops that were beginning to retreat behind him, a familiar gaze had fallen on him. It was a face she had never seen before, but the gaze was warm and familiar. The other party nodded at Di Beichan, and Di Beichan responded indifferently. He knew that it was Di Yujue in disguise. Before they left, his father was still worried about them. Bailey Hongzhuang followed Di Beichan's gaze and also noticed the figure. Whether it was her height or her appearance, she was completely different from her usual self, but she was still recognizable at first glance. Di Yujue's lips curled into a smile before he turned and left. Not only Di Yujue, but the leaders of the major forces also left quietly. If they didn't leave now, it would be awkward for them to stay here and look at each other when the juniors entered the ancient battlefield later. Chapter 5726. Soon after, the restriction completely dissipated under everyone's waiting. Do you feel it? The prohibition has disappeared completely. We can go in now. After waiting for so long, It has finally disappeared. But who will go in first? Even though they had sensed the disappearance of the restriction, their hearts were still pounding. The ancient battlefield was simply too mysterious to them. When Di Beichun and the rest realized this, they were ready to go and slowly approach the entrance. "Young master, we will wait for your return in the family," the great elder said sincerely as he glanced at the cultivators in the Di family. Di Beichun nodded. "Don't worry, I will bring everyone back safely. Take care." Just as everyone was in a dilemma, someone had already entered the ancient battlefield. As the first person entered, the other cultivators rushed in without hesitation and threw the so-called risk to the back of their minds. Xiao Shou and Jun Lingxuan also prepared to leave at the first moment, and before leaving, Shu Yu couldn't help but remind them. After entering the ancient battlefield, if you don't encounter any danger, there is no need to rush to break through. Suppressing your cultivation will be beneficial to you. However, if you encounter any danger, you can break through if you really can't. "Yes, master. You must return safely." Shu Yu nodded and waved for the two of them to leave. Jun Lingxuan did not delay and immediately led his own team into the ancient battlefield with Xiao Shou. When Bailey Hongzhuang opened her eyes, there was a foggy world in front of her. White fog filled her eyes, and in an instant, it was as if there was only white left in the world. The air was filled with the smell of blood, and Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but frown. The ancient battlefield should have appeared for a long time. Why is there still such a strong smell of blood? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. However, there was no response to her voice. "Beichun, are you not here?" Beichun, after shouting a few times without receiving any response, Bailey Hongzhuang finally understood. It seemed that they had been separated when they came in. "Master, this place is so strange. There's only white fog as far as the eye can see. I can't see anything clearly at all." Xiaohei looked puzzled. They had been to such places before, but even though the visibility was low, they could still see clearly within a meter. Right now, they couldn't see anything at all. If there was any danger, they wouldn't even be able to react in time. Bailey Hongzhuang's face darkened. The ancient battlefield is not like the immortal cloud mystic realm. Many people have already entered it. This is the first time it has appeared. No one knows what is going on inside. If it's a dangerous place, wouldn't it be possible for all of us to be wiped out? Xiaohei no longer had the joking expression from before. Such a consequence was not something they could bear. "First, we have to figure out where the smell of blood came from. Is it from before or now?" Bailey Hongzhuang said in a deep voice. Even though the situation in front of her made her feel helpless, Bailey Hongzhuang forced herself to calm down. She had no other choice now. If she did not calm down, she might not even be able to keep her life. Closing her eyes, Bailey Hongzhuang tried to use her mental energy to sense everything around her. However, there was a mysterious power in the fog that prevented her mental energy from penetrating it. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.